Well, happy Friday afternoon. Welcome in to 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. That is Spencer Dupuis. Also joining us, our summer intern, Trenton Kraxner. Dan Lucero, for one more day, is on paternity leave. He will be back in studio coming up on Monday next week. We are looking forward to seeing Dan again. He was bemoaning on Twitter the other day that he has not gotten dad strength right away. He said, I was told I'm going to get dad strength, but he was bending over to pick something up for his kid and pulled his oblique, he said. So he has not quite acquired that as of yet, but we're excited to see Dan and get to hear all about his first 2 weeks as a dad coming up on Monday.
I'll tell you what, he definitely still finds some time to get his takes out there on Twitter.
Got to get hold the baby in the left. Well, no, Dan's a lefty, so he's holding the baby in the right probably, and he's tweeting with the left, and he can get it all out there. It works out perfectly.
I didn't think he would nearly be on Twitter as much as he has been.
Kids do sleep a lot.
That's true. And then they're up when we're trying to sleep.
Yeah. I would imagine with a child that small, it's probably like, 2 hours on, 2 hours off or so?
It's probably something
relative like that. We'll get to find out. We'll ask him all the questions that we don't know anything about coming up on Monday when Dan rejoins us. We do have a ton of stuff to get to on the show here today. The Royals won yesterday. All right. Great. Salvaged one from the A's. The vibes still aren't especially good going into the Rangers series that starts tonight. Spencer's got some stats for us about the offense and just how ugly it has been recently. Trenton sent me a text on Wednesday night, that would have been, when the Royals lost 5-1, and told me if the Royals get swept tomorrow, yesterday, you might not see me on Friday. Dog, I did not see a Royals collapse happening at this part of the schedule. I think, thankfully, they have avoided collapse for now, but definitely need to figure something out. They need a spark because the vibes are not especially high right now. And I can imagine, Trenton, as a lifelong Royals fan, there's a little bit of little bit of a war flashback right now, I would imagine, after losing 2 out of 3 to the A's.
Yeah. The Royals historically have never done well, but
I'm sorry. It's
at least they took the first season series from the A's since 2015, and they won the last ever game they'll play at the Coliseum.
Okay.
Next year will be in Sacramento.
That's
the
true.
A's will be, so that's a positive.
So they might as well stay.
Yeah, at this rate, maybe they should. So we'll get into the offense for the Royals, what needs to be fixed. Some positive news today, at the very least, hopefully. So we will get that. Joe on YouTube says, you laugh at our pain. Brother, I'm a fan of the Chicago Cubs. Until 2015, pretty much I had only experienced pain also. Generations of Cubs fans had only felt pain. So it's because I've been there before. I understand.
Did you see this random fact? I don't know who tweeted out. One of the Royals, either people that's on their broadcast or a beat writer, their first away game in 1969 was played at the Coliseum.
Was it really? I didn't see that.
Their first away series in 1969 as a franchise was played in the Coliseum.
That's very fitting since the A's had, of course, previously been in Kansas City as well. I would imagine Major League Baseball probably planned that at the time. That's cool. I did not know that. So we'll get to the Royals here in just a little bit. We'll also, of course, preview this weekend's series against the Rangers coming up on the show. Also in this 2:00 hour, we've got an edition of Change My Mind, and Rick Peterson from TopSports.News is going to join us for a day-late edition of the Lewis Toyota High School Whip Around. Obviously, we had the Royals game yesterday afternoon when we usually would have Pistol on, so he was kind enough to move his schedule around to join us today on the show. Plenty of Chiefs to get to today. Justin Reid was a guest on the Green Light with Chris Long podcast. Chris Long, of course, longtime former NFL player. He's got a podcast called Green Light, and it's a good show. I like Chris Long, engaging guy. Justin Reid was a guest and had some very interesting things to say about the kicking game. We'll hear from that and what it'll look like for Chiefs special teams coming up this year. Also, Aaron Schatz of ESPN, he put together his list of every team's biggest need before training camp. And I like where his head is at for the Chiefs, but I don't think it's as simple as he makes it out to be. We'll tell you what that plan is in the 4:00 hour. Matt Derrick will also join us for our Chiefs Insider in the 3 o'clock hour today. Plenty of college football to get to. Phil Steele's season preview magazine is out. I don't know if we have it at the Topeka Barnes & Noble yet. I know some people around the country have gotten theirs. His preseason top 40 is out. And I got to be honest with you. I think Phil Steele and I have been watching a different Big 12 conference recently. I'm very surprised by some of his takes. West Virginia over Kansas? That's one of them that I'm perplexed by. So we'll get to that coming up in the 4 o'clock hour of the show today. Also, of course, our headlines, what might be the second to last playoff roundup of the year. We'll get to that. We also will, of course, as I mentioned, preview the Royals, get to what is wrong with you, find our weekly winner, all that and much more today on 580 Sports Talk. You are welcome to be a part of the show. In fact, we want you to be a part of the show today, either on the Top City Metal Supply text line, where the number is 785-272-9429, or you can find us on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the name of our YouTube channel. Go subscribe while you are there. That's the best way to stay in touch with all of the cool stuff video-wise we are doing on the show. You can also find our video stream on our website, 580wibw.com, on Twitter, at 580 Sports Talk, and on our Facebook page, WIBW News. I also want to keep you abreast of one piece of fun information, something to be prepared for in the 3 o'clock hour today. So in the 3 o'clock hour, we've got a pair of tickets to Kenny Chesney at Arrowhead Stadium. That show is on July 6th. We've got a pair of tickets to give away. We are going to give away a pair of tickets to Kenny Chesney, along with the Zach Brown Band, Megan Maroney, Uncle Cracker, all of them performing at Arrowhead Stadium on July 6th. Today, next Friday, and the Friday after, we are going to have...
the day before the concert.
Yeah, right beforehand. We're going to have 3 different chances for you to win tickets to go see Kenny Chesney. That opportunity is coming up in the 3 o'clock hour today. So be listening if you have any desire to go and see Kenny Chesney at Arrowhead coming up in the start of next month. The Royals will be back in action tonight. You'll hear that game here on 580 WIBW, taking on the Texas Rangers. Brady Singer versus Nathan Eovaldi. That is your pitching matchup. The great news, well, the good news going into the opener tonight is Hunter Renfroe is back. He was brought up, returned from his rehab assignment, activated from the injured list for today. So he's able to rejoin the big club. Yeah, he didn't go on a rehab assignment. You're right, but activated from the injury list. Thought he might be out for upwards of 2 months. He was out for a couple of weeks. That is really good news.
It's only good if he's hitting like he was when he got hurt.
Well, right. So he had, over the course of the season so far, posted numbers that are pretty rough. I mean, he's right at the Mendoza line, 200 batting average, not as much pop as you would have hoped out of the bat. But over the previous month before he got hurt, about 24 games, he was batting really well, had gotten that average up near 300. He was OPSing well over 800. That's much more of the player that the Royals thought they were going to get. Now, do I think he's going to post an 840 OPS for the rest of the season? No, I do not. But could he be someone who's slashing somewhere around 230, 290 with a slug around like 400, something like that, like a league average OPS as opposed to what he had been posting to start the year? Yeah, I think he can do that. The one hope, and you alluded to this, Spencer, is avoiding a downturn or a stunting of his momentum because of the injury. When you're swinging a hot bat, the last thing you want is to miss time. When you go into the All-Star break every year, guys who are on a hot streak going into the break never like it because, damn, I'm about to go 4 days without swinging. I'm about to go 4 days without seeing live pitching, real pitching. This is going to slow me down. I feel like it's a somewhat similar phenomenon here for Renfroe, right? Is he was hitting so well and had really taken some strides offensively that now you're in a spot where with 2 weeks off, you hope he hasn't hit the skids too much. That's the big concern for me. Maybe I shouldn't be concerned. He's a vet. He's a pro. He's been doing this for a long time. Because if you're getting more so the guy who had been batting 280 over a month, awesome. You're feeling great.
Yeah.
If you're more so getting the guy who was a black hole for the first month and a half of the season, that actually probably isn't going to change much at all for the Royals.
I think my biggest concern here is what he did during his time to rehab because of the pressure being put on on the foot when you swing. Like, to me, that's a big thing. Like, how many swings was he able? I guess they were confident enough to not send him down to do a rehab assignment. So that's a good sign from the outside. But like, how much is it going to be getting used to having to plant your foot the way that you do with that was a foot injury? So
sure. No, that's a fair point.
Concern.
Yeah, and you just hope that he'll be able to get back to the form he had been playing with. Then you feel minimally better about this offense. I don't think that's enough for you to say, all right, don't need to go get a corner outfield bat. We do not need to add a bat now at the deadline. We're set. We brought back mid to late career Hunter Renfroe. Nah, I don't think anyone is saying that. But at least for now, that should help you buoy an offense that has been pretty gross as of late. I had the numbers for you yesterday about just how the Royals have hit really poorly situationally in their last 4 games. Do you know what 2 for 25 is percentage-wise?
Very bad.
That's a .080 batting average. Okay? Not great. Not very good at all, in fact. .080 over just a small sample, 4 games, 25 at-bats. But you're facing the A's, man. You can't be that bad, and you really just can't drop 2 out of 3 to the A's. You have some stats for us, though, going back for the better part of a month. Well, not a better part of a month, but for over a week now, about a week and a half, dating back to before that Yankees series. If you extend it out, it's not like that was just, 4 bad days. No, this has become something of an unfortunate trend in the last 10 days or so.
Yeah, so starting back on the start of the series on June 10th, they were 2 for 7 with runners in scoring position. The 11th, 0 for 7. The 12th and the 13th, they were both 2 for 10.
Ew.
1 for 2 to start the Dodgers series.
Didn't have a whole lot going offensively.
2 for
in that
7,
game.
0 for 5, 0 for 8, 1 for 6, 1 for 5 yesterday. That totals up to 11 for 67 with runners in scoring position, which they did raise their average by 0.03 points yesterday, going 1 for 5. They're now hitting 164 with runners in scoring position since June 10th, while leaving a total of whopping 68 runners on base during that time period.
So 11 for their last 67 with runners in scoring position. That is less than 1 every 6 at-bats. 1 hit every 6 at-bats.
Yeah.
That's not just not going to get it done against... It's not just going to not get it done against teams like the Dodgers and the Yankees, who are legitimate World Series contenders. Clearly as we saw, it's not even good enough against crappy teams. So that is something that has got to get figured out with this group. I don't know exactly what the answer to this following question is. I want to know, though, is this something that this group is going to be able to figure out, or is this something that will require outside help to improve on? Obviously, this specific core group that the Royals already have, they were hitting phenomenally in those situations earlier in the year. Dan had a stat for us at some point about just how good the Royals at one point were batting better with runners in scoring position than with nobody on or with runners just on first base. It was remarkable. That, generally speaking, does not happen. And yet the Royals, for an early part of the season, were actually executing to that degree. So we know they've got that in them, but as we were talking about on yesterday's very brief show after the final A's game, those numbers were unsustainable. Those were so far above projection. They were so far above league average, team average, all of that. You knew they were not going to be able to keep that up for even a few more weeks or months, let alone the entire rest of the season. What at that point would have been 4 more months of the year. So do you rely just on them to get back to around that level of production? Or are you still telling yourself that getting a competent bat likely in the outfield is a must-have? Not just a luxury, but something that you have to add to this team if you want to be a contender come September and October. And I would lean personally with, yes, you need to add another piece, but I can understand if you wanted to take a conservative approach and say, we've seen it from this group, they just need to get back to that. I understand that. I'm not sure that I would agree with that.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I still think you need to bring in a guy. Bringing in people just helps, I think, especially if you're going to bring in a guy that's known for having a decent bat. I think if you're going to give somebody a day off, or if God forbid somebody gets hurt again, you have somebody there that can be a utility guy and play the outfield, or even a guy that can play multiple positions in the infield as well would help.
There is something to be said for, you feel like there's a positive vibe when you add someone at the deadline knowing that you're going to improve your team. Like If you go out there and you add a guy, I'm going to give you an example here. I'm going to give you the example of Brent Rooker with the A's, former Royal, who last year was the A's all-star representative and deserved it. He had a really good year. This year in 62 games, he's actually got better numbers than he had a season ago. Average, on base, slugging, OPS, they're all higher than they were a year ago. Now, he also leads the American League in strikeouts, which isn't especially good. But if you've got that kind of pop and you're playing in a park like the K, are you going to hit a massive number of home runs? Probably not. Do you have plenty of chances to hit doubles and triples, though? You absolutely have that. He's already got a career-high 2 triples this year. He's got 13 doubles, 13 home runs. I'm not saying it's going to be Brent Rooker who the Royals go out and trade for, and I don't know what his contract situation looks like. But a player like that, you bring that kind of guy into the clubhouse, and you feel like, oh, shoot, we're going for it. This dude is coming in here to help us make it to a contending window in the final 2 weeks of the season, and to get beyond that and to get to October. And as we saw last year with the expanded playoffs, just get to the tournament. You just need to get to the postseason, and you've got a legitimate chance to make it to the World Series. Just look at what the Diamondbacks did last year with their 84 wins, okay, to get to the World Series. Obviously, that is something that is very vital. That is something that is important to just get there. Another reason why I think it would make a lot of sense to go out and try to add somebody, again, like a Brent Rooker. Another name that has come up and I have seen posted, we talked about him going into the A's series, Miguel Andujar, who for years was this joke because he was one of the top prospects the Yankees had and they wouldn't trade him for anybody. And then it turned out he was just a quad A player. Like he's just a guy, if even that. He's hit really well for the A's so far this year for the most part. He also has not played all that much, and in a career that has been completely forgettable, maybe it's just a blip on the radar, maybe it's a small sample size thing. You would obviously be taking a major gamble and betting on the upside if you went for a player like that. Stay in that same division, though. AL West. 2 guys on the Angels. Taylor Ward, who we have talked about, who this season, production-wise, has been slightly above average. Things like OPS, weighted runs created, the statistical stuff, it's been slightly above average. But let me ask you this. You can trade a prospect or 2, guys who aren't going to make a difference for you anyway, to go get a player like Taylor Ward, who is a slightly above average bat, or you can continue to see MJ Melendez play in left field every single day, who has been a noticeably, and to put it lightly, below average bat this year. Which of those things would you rather have?
Give me another at bat.
Give me Taylor Ward. Yeah. Give me him without question. Joe Adell, another guy, a little bit of a gamble. Once upon a time, major prospect for the Angels. Came up, was not good at all. Went back down to AAA. He was mashing in Salt Lake City. He's come up, and it feels like maybe he has started to figure it out. And again, that's another guy who's got some pop in his bat, excuse me. That's the position I think the Royals are in right now. You've just got to get to the deadline or get to a point where you can consummate a deal, whenever that is. You can make a trade anytime.
Yeah.
They can make a trade today and then have someone ready to go by the end of the weekend. That would be awesome. But until
they have been making trades, just not impactful to the major leagues.
Right. And I appreciate the desire to continue building organizational depth.
But you're at a point where you could help if it would be a big help if you made a trade that would help the major league level.
Agreed. 100% completely right. And that is why you just need this group to get you there. Okay? You don't need them to be incredible, but you need them to get you there. And like we talked about, Spencer, yesterday when we were on for half an hour in the 5 o'clock hour, guys other than Bobby Witt Jr. have got to hit. Awesome yesterday that Freddie Fermin hit 2 home runs. Good for Freddie Fermin. But generally speaking, that's not what you get out of your backup catcher / your your third DH option. I think it was just the second game he had ever started as a DH in his career for Freddie Fermin. You need the bottom of the order guys. MJ hit well in this series. That's good. You need a lot more out of him, obviously. Salvi has got to figure it out at some point. You have to get more from Vinny Pasquantino. The two of them want to combine 6 for 30 this weekend. Not going to cut it. Not good enough between your guys who are pretty much every day hitting third and fourth with Pasquantino and Perez, respectively. Those guys have to figure it out. Once they do, okay, you're feeling better. You go out, you get 2 bullpen arms, however you're able to acquire them, whether it's Pennington from AAA and then a trade deadline acquisition, or even 2 guys you bring in at the deadline. And whenever you're able to go get another quality major league bat, once you bring those guys in, you can hit the ground running. You just have to get a little more production out of this team before then, because you don't want to get to the deadline and suddenly you're flirting with 500 or you're right at 500 and suddenly your path to the playoffs is far murkier. That's not the position you want to be in if you're the Kansas City Royals. We'll look ahead to this series with the Texas Rangers later on in the show today. Plenty of Chiefs and plenty of college football to get to today as well. First things first, though, here in this 2 o'clock hour, we'll play some Change My Mind, then talk to Rick Peterson of TopSports.News. That's all coming up here on 580 Sports Talk, live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Back on 580 Sports Talk, live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Brendan Spencer and Trenton here with you today. Don't forget, next hour, we are going to have some Kenny Chesney tickets to give away. First Friday of 3 straight that we're going to have some tickets to give away to see Kenny Chesney and all sorts of different artists at Arrowhead Stadium coming up on July 6th. We'll have a pair to give away in the next hour. During the break, Spencer said to me a brand new sentence. It is something that no one in the history of the earth had ever said before.
Did you get the message?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
He sent it to me here. He said, did you see the picture of Hassan Reddick cosplaying in Japan? Greek to me. What do you mean? And yes, Hassan Reddick of the New York Jets, for now, he was traded from the Eagles to the Jets this offseason, and he's now holding out from the Jets because they haven't given him a new contract. He is currently doing some sort of cosplay dress-up thing while he is on vacation in Japan.
Yeah.
And that's what he was doing instead of being at mandatory minicamp last week. Athletes are weird, man. That's one of the more comforting things about professional athletes when you realize they are goofy weirdos just like us. Like, Hassan Reddick didn't want to go to minicamp. He wants a new contract. So instead, he went and is wearing some sort of samurai warrior outfit while on vacation in Tokyo.
This reminds me, why am I blanking on his name? Just athletes showing who they really are. Why Jimmy, basketball player, Jimmy Butler.
Jimmy Butler? My guy, like, Jimmy Buckets.
In his heavy metal phase.
Punk
rock phase.
His emo phase with the hair.
Yeah.
He is a character. All right, change my mind time. We'll get to Rick Peterson here in just a few moments. First, though, time to change my mind. Potentially, anyway. Do either of you listen to podcasts? Either of you podcast guys?
Yes.
Sometimes, Trenton. I listen to a lot of NFL podcasts. The Athletic Football Show, that's a regular listen. There's a lot of NFL ones I listen to week to week. Some other ones mixed in. There's this weird trend among NFL people, like writers, bloggers, whatever. They'll post, oh, I heard this interesting thing on this, on Mina Kimes' podcast this week. Here's the clip of it. And they're listening at sped up tempos, because on your podcast app or Spotify or whatever, you can change how fast you listen to the playback of a podcast. And people are listening at like 150% speed or like 1.25 times speed. Change my mind. Listening to a podcast at increased speed is insane. Like, not just not for me, it's insane. Like, the whole point to me of listening to a radio show or a podcast or anything like that is to listen to the conversation and to, like, pick up on the interesting details that someone's talking about. If you listen to it twice as fast or whatever, that is insane to me.
Yeah. This is not a political statement in any way, but if you listen to Ben Shapiro at that speed, I wonder what he would sound like. He already talks fast as it is, so I couldn't imagine his podcast at 2 times speed. Right? You know what I'm talking about? I could not imagine that.
No, that's a fair point. I can't do it. Like,
I don't understand why, like, people do. Like, what are they get? Is it just their background noise? Like,
I guess, but then listen to music or something. I feel like that's the whole point of, like, if you're gonna go listen to our podcast, you'd want it. Well, I mean, I would hope to be at a normal speed, and I talk pretty fast regardless. But so you can actually listen to a point I'm making, or that you're making, or that Trenton is making, not just so you just have this constant, almost staticky sound behind you. A few weeks ago, we had that clip of Steve Smith talking about the Chiefs receivers and talking about Xavier Worthy. We had mentioned, and Rashee Rice, James Palmer was talking about Rashee Rice. That podcast clip. When I found it on Twitter, someone had shared it. Yes. I had to go back to YouTube to record the audio because the podcast clip was so sped up. This is crazy. How do you know what these people are even saying?
Yeah, I mean, like,
insane to me.
Like, a little inside baseball here. Sometimes when I'm recording stuff that airs on the station or across our Kansas Information Network, sometimes my sportscasts are like 103, right? And you speed it up to make it a minute instead of cutting out a couple words, and you still sound normal. But sometimes you want to fit in a certain amount of information. You're at like 108 and you try to speed it up, and it doesn't sound right. So then you have to cut out information.
Yeah, I just don't get it. I think it's crazy. I do. Do you ever change my mind?
Yes. This is very pessimistic here, and Royals fans, do not come at me. This is just pessimistic based off numbers, those numbers that I talked about in the last segment. The Royals are cooked. It's over. They're done. They're going to go below 500 the rest of the way.
See, I think,
although if they went below 500, they'd have to go severely below 500 to wind
to
up,
not finish 500.
To not look decent, or at least 75 wins, right? They have to go horribly.
I think they're in a period of regression to the mean right now. Matt on YouTube made a comment about regression to the mean a little bit earlier on. I would say that this is a period of regression and that they are eventually going to find a middle ground between what the offense has been this past week and a half versus what it was for the first 2 months of the season. I think it is going to even out quite a bit. So they're not as good as they were in April and May, but they're better than they have been right now. And I think the thing that will continue to help buoy them and will give them a second wind, if you will, in the second half of the year is adding something to this team. I do think that is going to be a spark that helps this team to bring in some new blood, a new arm in the bullpen. You can say, yes, the game is over in the 8th inning because we added whoever into the pen. Or we know that when we get to the bottom third of the lineup, we're going to have someone who's going to pack a punch down there as opposed to MJ Melendez, Freddie Fermin, and Kyle Isbell. Like, we're going to have a little more than that.
I apologize, Joe.
Joe on YouTube says, not today, Spencer. My feelings are fragile. It's been a rough. Hey, after how good things have been, to go through a stretch like the Royals have gone through where they are now, 3-8 in their last 11 games?
Yeah.
I can understand the feelings being fragile. I can understand. I wouldn't worry too much yet, though. I really wouldn't. Now, if we get to the deadline and the Royals are suddenly 2 games under, okay, yeah, I'd feel pretty bad. I would not feel very good at that point whatsoever. Coming up on the other side of this commercial break, we've got a day-late edition of the Lewis Toyota High School Whip Round with Rick Peterson. He'll join us coming up after this on 580 Sports Talk, live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Joining us now on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline is the one and only Rick Peterson of TopSports.News. He normally joins us on Thursdays, but due to the Royals game yesterday, was kind enough to join us on Friday instead. You can find Pistol's phenomenal work covering all local sports in Topeka and Shawnee County over at TopSports.News. You can also follow him on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. How you doing, Pistol?
I'm doing great. Just walked in from the Big Kid Give Back camp.
I
doing great.
I wanted to ask you about that. We got to talk to Michael Wilhoit and Kyle Weems earlier in the week and getting to hear how excited they were about this camp, the third year of Big Kev Give Back. They were so excited about it. How cool was it to get to be there and to get to see everybody in action today?
Well, for me, it's like a reunion because I see the guys that have been on my all-state like the last 20 years, maybe 30 years. Cool to see all those guys. Of course, it's always cool to see Mike.
Minor technical difficulty there with Pistol. We'll call him back here in a second and get him back on the air. It's our Lewis Toyota High School Whip Around with Rick Peterson of TopSports.News. Phones, live radio happens sometimes. We'll get Pistol back on.
There might be something wrong with phones in the area because I just had no service on my phone.
No service for yours?
Not no service, but barely any service moments ago when we were off the.
Yeah,
on the
I don't know who's carriers. I've got service today. I don't know.
I have Verizon.
It happens sometimes. We've got Rick Peterson back on the line. Pistol, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you right now. Hopefully it lasts. I'm sitting out where I always do, but you know phones.
Anything technology, it is A, above my pay grade, and B, untrustworthy as far as I am concerned sometimes.
Yeah.
But no, awesome to see the camp. What was the attendance like when you were out there?
Good. We were thinking there was about somewhere in the neighborhood of 120 kids, which I think is excellent. All kinds of ages, from the little kids up to about the high school age, and a lot of local coaches out there supporting. So it was great.
Well, that's awesome. And also, I know you were mentioning this too before the line dropped out. I know that they were going to bring in Mike and Kyle, all sorts of different Topeka greats. And I know Michael, with some of those connections with the Broncos, is going to bring some coaches to town as well. How cool was it to see not just the two of them putting this on, but to get to see all those other Topeka and Washburn greats back in town to put this on for our community?
Yeah, like I said, for me, it was a reunion because I've seen guys that covered 20, 30 years ago, and it was great to see them all.
We're chatting with Rick Peterson from TopSports.News. It's the Lewis Toyota High School Whip Around here on 580 Sports Talk. Go check out TopSports.News for all of the best coverage of local sports here in Topeka and Shawnee County. Coming up next week, Pistol, speaking of sports in Shawnee County and Topeka, the Shawnee County Sports Awards, they are coming up on June 26th. That is the banquet coming up next week. How prepared are you and everyone else who puts this on for this to take place next week?
Well, never prepared. But I think we're in pretty good shape. When you do something like this, there's always going to be some surprises at the very end. But I think we've done everything we can, and no matter what happens, we'll get through it.
I wanted to go through a handful of the categories and the nominations this year, maybe not one by one, but there's write-ups about all of these different athletes, most inspirational, best fall, winter, and spring, all over at TopSports.News, and you'll be able to check those out through the banquet coming up next week. Let's just start with the most recent ones you've published, Pistol, the most inspirational male and female nominees for this year. And this is always one of my favorite categories every year because even for the athletes who do not win the most inspirational categories, just getting to hear about what some of these young athletes have gone through, what they have overcome to succeed to the level they have. It's always one of my favorites because you really get to hear about all the things that make sports great and make our community great when we get to hear about these athletes.
Yeah, like last year, our female winner was Alyssa Droege, who had fought through cancer, who had fought through multiple ACL injuries and stuff like that. This year, the one that sticks in my mind right now is, and he didn't have a ton of injuries or anything like that, but Riken Carver of Shawnee Heights was a good three-sport athlete, a state champion in wrestling. So he's working hard at sports and still had like a 4.53 GPA or something. So to me, that's an inspiration. I mean, to these kids that say, "Oh God, I don't want to go home and do my homework. I'm tired." There's a guy in three sports at a high level, and it's still way, way, way up there on the within the top 1% of every GPA.
I will tell you this much, Pistol. My GPA when I was in high school, it had one of those numbers in it, and it certainly was not a 4 or a 5, and frankly, it might not have been a 3 either. So I am always impressed. And, there are GPA requirements for all these awards, and the fact that so many of these athletes play multiple sports and still are able to be incredible students in the classroom is obviously amazing. Was there a category? Well, we can do this for both male and female. Was there a season that to you was the most difficult to go through the nominees or go through the potential winners this year?
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, and I'm going to give a little bit, not too much, but we're going to have categories for winners. And when I talked to Dan, and I talked to Brent Maycock, and I talked to Todd Fertig and all those, it was just impossible to narrow a couple of these down to one. So there will be co's, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I'd rather have co's than somebody deserving getting completely ignored. But hey, right away, spring male, you have Dushy, 3 gold medals for the second straight year. Aaron Merritt, 2 gold medals and a second. Jackson Escobar wins the 3,200 for the second straight year. Was also the cross country champ and finished second in the 1,600 second straight year. Just great candidates there. And then the same with winner female. You got Kendra Hurla, who won her 4th straight state wrestling title. You got Mackenzie McDaniel, who I believe is a 4-sport athlete, led Silver Lake to the 3A state title. And that's just a couple right off the top of my head. I mean, there were a couple, and Brent Maycock backed me up on this, that we've never had that tough of a job in picking as we did in some of these this year.
Yeah, that is the first one I thought of was spring male as well, and all the state champions and all the contributors to state tournament qualifying teams. That is as deep as I can remember in my time here, Pistol. So I'm very excited to see all these athletes get to be celebrated again. The Shawnee County Sports Awards Banquet and Hall of Fame induction, that is coming up on Wednesday next week. That will be at Washburn University. A couple other things I wanted to ask you about here, Pistols. We're talking to Rick Peterson from TopSports.news. It's our Lewis Toyota high school whip around here on 580 Sports Talk. Pistol joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. I didn't get to ask you about this shortly after it was announced over at the website. But the last several years, you guys at TopSports.news, and you have headed up these projects, have put together the greatest teams from various sports, the greatest coaches, the top 10 players per sport in Shawnee County and Topeka history. Tell us a little bit about this summer's project, because this one, frankly, Pistol, might be the most difficult of all.
Well, my son, my loving son, told me yesterday that you're probably right there. It is a tough task, but I think it'll be a fun task. And when you do something like this, Brendan, you don't even expect for half the people to agree with you. But my thing in doing all these that you just mentioned and this one this year is to bring attention and honor as many athletes as possible. And that's what I'm going for this year. But yeah, no, I've been a part. It was my idea, and I kind of pushed it when I was at the Cap Journal when we did the first top 100 in 2011, and then I did another one. Brent and I did another one in 2020 at Cap Journal. but they were everybody lumped together. With all the great, great athletes that we have on both the male and the female side, I decided it's not fair to put them all together. So I'm doing 100 for the males and 100 for the females, and that may be I may be ready to announce my retirement when this is all done. but I think it'll be fun, and I certainly think even if people don't agree, I think people will look at that stuff, and I think that's good for our website and good and bring up some names that maybe Topekans haven't for a while. I think it'll be good.
I'm so excited, Pistol, because you know how much I love the history of sports in general and sports in these communities. I'm just looking at the post you put up back on June 10th announcing this project. Just the players you focused with images on the side of the website. We've got Mike Torres, who won 185 games in Major League Baseball and won a World Series. U.S. Open champion Gary Woodland, who is still doing great on the PGA Tour. Chris Barnes, who went in the Hall of Fame last year. He's a PBA Hall of Famer and was great as a high school athlete, too. Sherry Norris, All-American tennis player. Nyjah Kennedy is actively the best softball player in America. And we'll ask about Nyjah here in a second. And then, Brooklyn DeLay, who is one of the best volleyball players in the country right now. That's absurd. Yep. And that's not even scratching the surface.
No, it's not. And there are always going to be, you could do 150, a top 150, and 151 through 170 could have been. It'll be the same way this year. We'll do a top 100 and we'll do a top 100 for male and female. There will still be some that get overlooked that are very, very deserving. But, like I say, no matter what number you put on it, it's always tough to narrow down.
Before we let you go, Pistol, I do need to ask you about Nyjah Kennedy, who is the now reigning National College Softball Player of the Year, which is just incredible. She is a superstar of the highest magnitude. But it was reported over the past week that she is planning to, if it's not official already, enter the transfer portal and explore some options outside of Stanford. I was admittedly a little surprised by this. Having talked to her myself, I know how much she loved that Stanford program. Had you heard about this being a possibility?
No, not until it happened, and it just flat shocked me. I mean, I know a lot of this, and I don't know what the case. Hopefully, I'll get to talk to Nyjah sometime because she's one of my all-time favorites. I mean, just a great girl and obviously a great exceptional athlete. I think in this day and age, Brendan, a lot of it comes down to NIL and all that stuff. Because I know, you can't be, the team could have been a little more successful if they had won a national championship, but you can't be any more successful than she was so far in her career.
I will tell you this. I joked about it on the show when this was reported the other day. She can go to any program she wants. She can go to absolutely any program in the country. Again, she has been voted as the best softball player in the country. But if she wanted to be close to home and close to family, I would not complain about her going to Lawrence for a couple years. I would be personally totally okay with that, Pistol.
If I had to hazard a guess, I would say Oklahoma, I think, will be in the picture. I mean, when they win so many national titles and the chance to go somewhere where you have a very good chance to win a national championship, I expect it might not come to fruition at all, but I expect that school name to be bandied about as we get closer.
I think you are probably barking up the right tree. I would not be surprised at all. Hey, every single team, I'm going to tell you right now, if you're a softball program out there in Division I, and if you're not calling about Nyjah Kennedy, then you don't really care about winning. She's the best player in the country. Rick Peterson is the best of the best when it comes to covering all of our local sports, high school and Washburn here in Topeka and throughout Shawnee County. Find him on Twitter at Peterson_Rick, and make sure, of course, you check out all of his great coverage at topsports.news. Thanks again, Pistol. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
That is the great Rick Peterson of TopSports.news, a Hall of Famer in his own right from last year as well. Coming up in the 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk, we've got some Chiefs football to get to, some really interesting stuff from Justin Reid. We also will talk to Matt Derrick. We have On Second Thought, and we'll have a chance to win a pair of tickets to go see Kenny Chesney next month at Arrowhead. That's all next hour on 580 Sports Talk, live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. now it's the 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski here, Spencer Dupuis there, Trenton Kraxner over there. Dan Lucero is somewhere. He is out on paternity leave. He will be back with us coming up on Monday. A big thanks, as always, to Rick Peterson of TopSports.News for joining us for the Lewis Toyota High School Whip Round last hour. If you missed any of that interview, if you missed any of the first hour of the show, you can go rewind the YouTube stream, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. And then you can also go and check out the podcast on our website, 580wibw.com. From the YouTube, this is from Joe. Not taking any pleasure in your pain, BD, but I just saw the Cubs score. Ouch. Shota Imanaga has been awesome for the Cubs this year. Seriously, awesome for the Cubs this year. He is getting his ass kicked today. Well, he's not pitching anymore. They already pulled him. My best friend is at the game today. He's in the third baseline upper deck stands.
That's nice.
And
but not
having a lot of fun.
It's nice that he's at the game, but,
right?
Not the best. Beautiful
game for him
to go
day.
to.
Yeah. It's we stink. It's okay. I had higher hopes for this year after a really hot start. You want to talk about regression to the mean? Yeah. The Cubs offense is garbage. It is worse than the Royals. How bad the Royals have been in the last 11 games, the Cubs are worse offensively, which just makes me sick to my stomach. This is also from Matt on YouTube. Trenton, I love your shirt. Trenton was just in studio during our commercial break on YouTube. What is on the shirt today, Trenton Kraxner?
Hail to old KU. I like it because it's kind of like an old-timey thing.
Yeah, it's kind of a retro look.
Yes, I like the retro look. Had to rep KU today because they got some important transfers as of late on the football side. They're really bulking up, so thought I'd represent the university, and I like the retro look and the retro shirts that they provide at Rally House and Jock's Niche and all that stuff.
Yeah, the retro school. I'm rocking my beloved friends at Home Field Apparel. Got my South Carolina shirt on today.
Speaking of Home Field, did you get in on their sale they got going on?
I did see that. I will be purchasing this weekend.
Yeah, I'm looking at a few.
You have heard us talk about our friends at Home Field Apparel on the air for years now. Dan and I each have like 30 shirts and hats from them.
Oh yeah, every time I feel like Dan, like at least twice a week, he's rocking Home Field stuff.
Oh yeah,
it's different stuff every week.
Yeah. I would love if the fine folks over at Home Field wanted to give us a call, but I'll pitch them anyway.
Yeah,
I don't care. Dude, these things are so comfortable.
We will do anything and everything for your advertising. We'll do like multiple spots. We'll do a whole segment sponsored by Home Field.
For what it's worth, that goes for anyone. If you own your own business, you work for any business you want to advertise, hit us up. We'll do whatever we can to get you on the air and to have you partner with us. Hit us up, 785-272-9429.
Speaking of, you missed out on the thing that Dan brought to our attention while you were on vacation.
What was that?
The Big Biscuit.
I know. Dan told me that because it was Friday, right? It was the Friday when they came in?
Yeah. Friday.
Dan said, oh, yeah, the folks at the Big Biscuit are stopping by. They got some stuff for us. It's coming on Friday. Said, well, damn, I'm leaving Friday. Come on. Missed out.
It was
that.
Good stuff. Like, I'll tell you what, I'm not a big coconut guy usually, but they put coconut in their drinks. So good. Their orange creamsicle drink, very good. I need to go down and get it.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Damn.
It's an orange creamsicle, but it's got like a touch of coconut in it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think my wife would really like that. I'm not a big coconut guy. But
I'm not either, but I was surprised that I liked it.
Yeah, I think Abby would really like that for sure. Yeah, if you want to stop by and bring us food, anyone, you're always welcome to do that. We'll give you the address. Don't forget that coming up here shortly, we are going to have tickets to give away to go see Kenny Chesney at Arrowhead Stadium on July 6th. That's a Saturday at Arrowhead. It's Kenny Chesney with the Zach Brown Band and Megan Maroney. And who is the other one? Uncle Cracker. I have not heard anything new from Uncle Cracker in like 20 years, but he will be there.
Did you see that we were talking about this Kenny Chesney interview yesterday on the Pat McAfee show, right?
Yeah, you spent nearly a whole hour with him.
Yeah. So did you hear when he talked about the tour? Except for Megan Maroney, he's been on tour with Uncle Cracker and Zach Brown Band.
Wow.
In years past, like in 2004, 2005, 2008, he was on, or 9 with Zach Brown Band. So he's like bringing them back.
So this is pretty much like the country version of that Kendrick Lamar concert the other night. Like, you're just bringing all his friends out.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, you're going to win tickets to a concert that even if you bought tickets, like, you're getting a heck of a deal with who you're going to see.
You're seeing At least 3 would be headlining acts right now.
Oh,
I don't know
yeah.
if Uncle Cracker's headlining anywhere,
No,
but the other 3
Megan
would.
Maroney on the rise, Zach Brown Band, and Kenny Chesney. Like, that's a deal.
So we'll have a pair of tickets to give away 3 straight Fridays. That includes today, and that's coming up here in just a few. So be listening for your chance to win Kenny Chesney tickets coming up in this hour of 580 Sports Talk. Plenty of Chiefs to get to. Matt Derrick is going to join us in a little bit. We'll also have this week's On Second Thought coming up. Your texts on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429. And we are going to get your thoughts on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the name of our YouTube channel. I wanted to listen to this clip from Justin Reid, the starting safety for the Kansas City Chiefs, in a contract year. I think that is significant, by the way. Maybe not for today, but I do think that is something significant to keep an eye on. So Justin Reid was a guest on Chris Long's podcast. Chris Long, son of Howie, brother of, Kyle. Kyle Long played for the Bears for a long time. Briefly a Chief. Kyle Long was a Chief for a hot second. He might have been on a Super Bowl team, in fact. And he's got this podcast called Greenlight. It's got a bunch of different cool interviews. It's a pretty entertaining show. And he had Justin Reid on, and they were talking all about the Super Bowl, his experiences with the Chiefs, how they grew as a defense, etc. But then he gets to the new kickoff rules and talks about how when we saw these new rules, you, Justin Reid, are the first guy we thought of. Remember, he's kicked for the Chiefs before when Harrison Butker got hurt his ankle back in the 2022 season. So this is a bit of a long clip. It's about 2.5 minutes. This is Chris Long speaking to Justin Reid about the new kickoff rules and his role in them. Pay attention for what is effectively some breaking news in the middle of this clip from Justin Reid.
You're the first person that when this news came across, we were like, yes, dude. We get to see
Hey, we
Justin.
might have added some time to my career. We might have extended my shelf life.
Yeah, the earning window is huge.
When I'm done being the starting guy on safety, I can turn into that rotational third safety and also be a kickoff specialist.
Tell us what we don't know, because we've studied it, but obviously there are some gaps in the tracking that the NFL could do on certain averages. Where it was last showcased in what was it, the UFL? UFL, XFL, one of these leagues. Yeah. But it's not apples to apples, and I don't think it's apples to apples because I think a big differentiating factor is the special, like a Tyreek Hill catching the ball in our league.
Yeah,
like your best players can get the ball. What do you think is the thing people aren't thinking about?
One is that the whole dynamic of hang time has completely flipped. Mm-hmm. Normally on kickoff, kickers get graded trying to have a 4-second hang time to give guys time to get down the field.
Right.
But now you're trying to keep the ball as low as possible while still in play so that you're trying to get it to hit the ground, because when the ball hits the ground, that's now your hang time. Guys can take off at that point, and however much time it takes to return or to pick up the ball, that's them wasting time. So that whole dynamic is just completely flipped on his head. It's a different kick. It's a different style. It's a lot more aggressive trying to hit the low ball. And I think that's just a new dynamic that you didn't see in the XFL because those guys are trying to show the NFL that they can kick the hang time balls.
Yeah.
So I think that the style of kicks you see from the get-go will just be different. And then secondly is the amount of plays that can be broken. When you have special talents like a Tyreek or some of these other explosive returners, there's an open gap somewhere on that field.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They have 10 blockers and we have 10 attackers, but everybody has 2 shoulders. So there's an open gap somewhere. And the advantage for us is that if I'm doing the job, which is what we're planning on doing, then I can fill that last gap. So it makes it a little bit easier that nobody needs to win 2 gaps. Like, hey, you win your gap, everybody's gap's out. Of course, you're going to try and always arm over and win across at late. But it's a little bit more comfortable knowing that you're responsible for 1 gap instead of every person on the field trying to 2 gap and hoping the returner doesn't find that last open gap.
So that's Chief Safety Justin Reid, again, via the Greenlight podcast with host, former NFLer Chris Long. The most significant thing we heard there was right at the end. Justin Reid said, not only is this something the Chiefs are considering, the plan is for him to handle kickoffs.
That's a big giveaway right there. We've talked about it being a possibility since it was talked about at the press conference, but now that
Dave Tobe talked about it.
Yeah, now that we are confirmed, and I feel like you always get more out of players. I think we talked about this early on when Mahomes was on with, or Kelsey was on with McAfee. Players always, as a player, you always give more to a former player than you would at a press conference.
Yeah.
Justin Reid talked about, potentially I'm going to work on kickoffs. I'm bringing a tee with me after the end of mandatory mini camp until we come back for training camp. But nothing was ever set in stone in that one. And he was very kind of like vague about it.
Mm-hmm.
But you get him talking to a player and their comfort level just changes, and they sometimes say things they shouldn't say.
Yeah. But and
I don't know if this was one of them, but this is something we've all thought about. Heard.
Probably okay since Tobe had brought it up. But if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tobe had said it just sort of as, we might do it. Like it's something we're looking at. We're trying to come up with ways to, make the rules work for us.
Yeah.
I think it makes a ton of sense. And I think the explanation there from Justin Reid makes a lot of sense. By the way, real quick, if I may interject, Justin Reid is going to have a career in media if he wants. He is really enjoyed listening to him. The entire podcast, by the way, you can find on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. It's a really entertaining listen. But anyway, this is significant, I think, for the Chiefs if this is what they want to go through with, because every team is going to come up with something. I know the Packers have talked about different things they want to do, both with kickoffs and with their return game to try to take advantage of the rules. I know I've heard about other teams who are doing similar things. This is going to be a weird year for special teams in the NFL because everyone's going to try something, and some of it's not all going to work.
The focus is also going to be on special teams for the first time in a number of years.
Oh, yeah.
Like the amount of focus teams are going to put on special teams, especially those teams playing the Chiefs. They're going to, in practice that week, put way more focus on special teams probably than they have all year, probably than they have in the last 10 years.
I agree. No, I agree with you completely on that. And I think for the Chiefs in particular, the fact that they were right on top of this right away is reminiscent to me of something else, another rule change in the last, let's say, season that was very significant, that maybe came up in, I don't know, the biggest game in the world, the Super Bowl. You know what I'm talking about? The new playoff overtime rules?
Yep, the clock rules.
The Chiefs were on top of it from the very beginning, and they knew exactly how to handle the every team gets a chance rule for playoff overtime now. You know who was not prepared? Mr. Super Coach of the Year, brain genius, Kyle Shanahan. He did not win Coach of the Year, but you know what I'm saying. I'm being facetious here. He was totally clueless about this. How you're not prepared, I don't know. The Chiefs said in the wake of that game, Andy Reid said it, Patrick Mahomes said it, all the other players said it. Oh, yeah, I mean, we knew in minicamp what we had to do. I mean, we've known since the summertime what we had to do in those situations and how to handle the clock in those situations. So I'm not at all surprised that the Chiefs are at the very forefront of this. I mentioned that I think this is very intriguing now with Justin Reid. He's in the final year of a contract. A player who can do multiple things for you, as long as they can do them well, is really valuable. Now, a player who can do multiple things but isn't good at them, I mean, they're expendable. Think of like every middle infielder the Royals signed in the late Dayton Moore years, like Ryan Goins or Chris Owings or those guys. They can play multiple positions. They also stink. They're not any good. They're not good baseball players. That doesn't do anything for you.
I've got a football one for you who regressed over very quickly. Landon Collins.
I thought Landon Collins was going to be a guy who would like break defense. Like he was going to be the proverbial queen on the chessboard. You could play. He's an outside linebacker, but he's also a free safety, but he's also a box safety. He just kind of stunk. He just wasn't very good.
Yeah, and when the Commander signed him, I was like, this is a really good signing, I think. Finally, somebody to be there. He idolized Sean Taylor like it was a thing he was going to be better than he already was.
Because he was in New York first, right?
Yeah.
With the Giants. Yeah.
When Dan Snyder, I hate saying his name, when he signed him, he gave him like one of the last original Sean Taylor jerseys.
Interesting. That's pretty cool.
Like game-worn jerseys.
That's a cool little fact. But so having a varied skill set like that, and truly different. I mean, Justin Reid is a good safety. I don't know that he's Ed Reed. In fact, I know he's not Ed Reed, but he's also not Chris Conte. Like, he's not a complete bum either. He's a good player. And you would have probably had some interesting conversations with him this offseason about a new contract or a contract extension. He is in the realm right now where the Chiefs usually don't keep those guys, especially on defense. The only guys they keep past 30 on defense are Hall of Fame caliber players under the Brett Veach administration. So that's been Chris Jones. And that's it.
Yeah.
They let Tyrann Mathieu walk. Tyrann Mathieu was a 2-time first-team All-Pro with the Chiefs. They used his 3 years of his contract and then said, Tyrann, thanks for the memories. Enjoy your next stop. And he somehow, for some reason, got an extension in New Orleans this year, which is crazy. But beside the point, they don't usually keep guys like that. Justin Reid right now is, I got to make sure I know how old he is. He is 27 years old. He will turn 28. So he'll be 27 this whole season. He'll turn 28 either on or right after the Super Bowl next year.
Yeah, I will say in that clip, he talked about like the fact that doing this could prolong his career and he could end his career as a kicker and a third string safety.
And rotational safety. I wonder if that is something the Chiefs would be willing to do. Because like Butker's a good field goal kicker. There's no denying that. He's a very good field goal kicker. But if you know you're going to have new rules you have to follow in the kickoff game, and you've got a guy on the roster who can do that and has a much more and can be far more specialized than what your current place kicker is and has done, I wonder why you wouldn't try to lean into that. Why you wouldn't say, we have this guy who can do this. Maybe this is worth a new 2-year contract. Or, a 2+1, quote unquote, 3-year kind of contract. I wonder if that would be worth it for Kansas City. Maybe it wouldn't. Maybe I'm putting way too much weight into, okay, he can be the kickoff specialist guy. But seriously, it's not like you're taking, this free agent kicker who has never really clicked with an NFL roster. We're bringing him in. And he's going to be the short kickoff guy for the kickoff game, but then we have our normal kicker for field goals.
Yeah.
Or, if we get penalized and it's assessed on the kickoff, we need to launch it. Then we need Butker's leg or whoever. Okay, that's a waste of a roster spot. But this dude's already on your roster, and he's good. Justin Reid had a really good year this past year.
I think this is a way far out thing, but I think this could change if you see position players able to do this. Like if there's more Justin Reids out there, I think you see a change in the roster design of special teams. And there's a lot of guys in college, although when you get to the NFL, you want them to do more than one, or you want them to focus on one thing. There's a lot of guys in college that punted and kicked field goals, and then they had to kick off specialist in college. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe eventually down the line, your punter is your field goal kicker and your kickoff guy is a kickoff guy and a position player.
Interesting. Yeah, I think
that's just something way far out that popped into my head. Probably not for the next 5-10 years.
I do think there is something to finding guys who can do, find a man who can do both. No, I mean, for real, there aren't many guys like this. We saw Justin Reid kick 2 years ago and it worked. It was fine. He was a decent in a pinch replacement, and he was getting a whole offseason to practice this. I think there is some real value to that. A couple of comments here from the YouTube feed. Again, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube or 785-272-9429 for the Top City Metal Supply text line. From Paul, another new NFL rule. If you think Reid wins the kickoff job over Butker because of Butker's speech, you receive your own 2-game suspension. That is extremely funny. I'm going to leave that one alone, but that is extremely funny. Also, this one from Jason on YouTube. I'm really excited for the rules changes. Do you put your fastest player back there to return? That's a fascinating question because, and you heard Reid say that hang time is no longer part of the equation. In fact, you want to not have a whole lot of hang time. Yeah. You want to just get it there quickly and let your coverage guys, or whatever they're going to call them, you want them to be prepared and ready to hit right away. And if you've got a guy like Justin Reid who's going to get down there quickly to fill the extra gap, you want to be able to get that done quickly. You don't need to worry about the old style whatsoever. But do you just put the fastest guy back there? Because frankly, one of the cool things that I don't think gets talked about enough with this new kickoff rule, because the main thing has been talked about a lot like baseball's rule changes last year with the bases getting bigger, fewer pickoff throws, and the new shift rules. What was the big thing? More balls in play, right? There's going to be more action plays during a game. This kickoff is supposed to do a very similar thing because touchbacks are now a bigger penalty. You get it out at the 30-yard line, and it's trying to get the kickoff back into the game and kick returns back into the game in hopefully a safer way. But you know the other thing that comes along with this? More touchdowns, because you've got, what would that be? 20 of the 22 guys on the field all lined up at the 35-yard line or whatever it is, right? What happens if you get past it?
You got nothing but green grass in front of you.
Green grass and high tides as far as the eye can see. Again, unless Justin Reid is kicking off, in which case he might be back there waiting to hit your return man.
Yeah, that hits you.
But I think there is a reasonable argument to make that you just put your fastest dude back there, and yeah, maybe Tyreek Hill gets blasted, but there's also a great chance he breaks one tackle, he's gone. Decent blocking, he's taken off. So I think there's an argument to that. I'm excited to see what this ends up looking like and how all 32 teams approach it differently. And frankly, which teams don't do anything.
That's the thing. They're all going to be different.
Yeah. Some team is just going to kick off like normal. We're not paying attention to these new rules. We're just going to do our thing. Yeah, good luck with that. We also have a text here from the Top City Metal Supply text line. Again, 785-272-9429. Regarding Justin Reid, I completely agree. I wouldn't want to waste a roster spot, so let's find a guy who can add kickoff specialists to their repertoire. I think it makes sense. There aren't many dudes like that.
Exactly.
And Ndamukong Suh kicked an extra point one time. He missed it, but he attempted.
Didn't Ocho Cinco do it?
I think he did in a preseason game, if I remember.
He liked soccer too. And
huge soccer fan.
He played soccer like a exhibition soccer match.
I think you're right about that. If you've got it, use it. Take advantage of it. This alone, and knowing that Reid is for sure going to do this, and that is certainly the plan, it makes me think that he's worth an extension, honestly. Knowing that in 2 years' time, he's going to be your third or fourth safety. But if you can keep this skill set while still providing plus defense, that seems like something the Chiefs could definitely use long-term. Coming up next, we will offer this week's Mea Culpas with our On Second Thought. We have Kenny Chesney tickets to give away coming up in just a few, and Matt Derrick is going to join us for our Chiefs Insider. That's coming up here on 580 Sports Talk, live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Real quick before on second thought today, an important text here from the 913. Remember, this is a 1-year trial with the new kickoff. That is true.
Yeah.
I think this is going to stay. I've seen it work in the spring leagues. I think it's going to be a more exciting play. And unlike when they did the 1-year trial with the you can review pass interference and challenge pass interference thing, the referee union won't hate this, I don't think. So I think that is going to play an impact as well. Also, one other cool thing about this, old school football. This is going to feel so old school. Did you know Pat Summerall, the legendary play-by-play man, did you know he was a defensive end / kicker in his career?
I didn't, but it makes sense because they did a lot of that.
Yeah, he played.
Sammy Ball was a punter, I think.
Sammy Ball, I think, played offense, defense, and special teams. Yeah. I think quarterback, defensive back, and punter. Yeah, Pat Summerall was a defensive end and kicker from 1953 to 1957, and then kicked for 4 more years after that in New York as well. He led the NFL in field goal percentage in 1959, and he made 69%. If you only made 69% of your kicks today, you would never be in the league ever again.
You would get cut halfway through the year.
You would not make it to 29 field goal attempts on the year. All right, real quick on second thought time. I know he's hit better in the last few days, so this is not super topical. I was willing to buy into MJ Melendez in the start of the year when he was just killing the ball and had all those great expected numbers. I said, you know what? Maybe I was wrong. I killed this dude for the last 2 years. I don't think I was wrong. I'm hoping that I'm proven wrong again, and then in a month I can say on third or fourth thought I was again wrong about MJ Melendez, but still waiting.
On second thought, the Royals, I said on Friday, had their 2 best pitchers pitching in the Dodger series, and I thought they were going to get 2 wins. Clearly that didn't happen. And then on second thought, I said the Royals need to not let Mason Miller pitch. And he pitched 2 games out of 3.
Yeah.
And they lost 2 out of 3. So,
man, that was
my on second thought.
That series stunk. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
That was after we went into the game on Wednesday night, as we were finishing the show, and we said, look, you don't need to sweep. It's hard to sweep, but you had the day off. You got a chance to bounce back against a bad team. You're going to feel good going into and out of this series. That's the more pertinent on second thought for me, I guess. I could not have been more wrong. They looked like crap on, what was that game? Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess it was going into the game Tuesday night because we didn't have a show on Wednesday for Juneteenth. I felt so confident that they were going to get it figured out, and they didn't. Matt Derrick is going to join us next for our Chiefs Insider, but first, we've got a pair of Kenny Chesney tickets at Arrowhead Stadium to give away. These will be delivered digitally the week of the show, so don't worry if you don't get them right away. They will be delivered digitally the week of the show. It's Kenny Chesney, Zach Brown Band, Megan Maroney, Uncle Cracker at Arrowhead Stadium July 6th. We want caller number 2 for 2 tickets. Caller number 2 to 785-272-9429. We're sending you to Arrowhead to see Kenny Chesney.
If nobody wants to go, I'll take the tickets.
We'll give them away. We'll hear from Matt Derrick next on 580 Sports Talk. Derrick, and he covers the Kansas City Chiefs for ChiefsDigest.com. You can find him on Twitter as well, at Matt Derrick. Matt joins us every Friday at this time for our Chiefs Insider on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. How you doing, Matt?
I am doing pretty well, Brendan. How are you doing today?
Doing very well. Thank you so much for asking. You and I were joking earlier. Not a whole lot going on. It might be tough to get a whole 15 minutes in here today.
You know, I really need to be careful when I say things like that because, you know, you say something, you just tempt fate. You're just tempting fate for somebody, some player to go out and do something stupid or somebody to get fired. But, you know, I mean, this team should be relatively disciplined, that they can keep themselves all together until July 16th and nothing else will happen, right? You know, there's no business to be done off the field or into state capitals or anything like that. We're all just fine, right?
Yeah, I'm sure Clark Hunt's not too busy these days either. Speaking of doing stupid things, let's just start with what should be the easiest topic here and also maybe the most infuriating one. What is Isaiah Buggs still doing on this roster? Maybe the dude needs some help. I don't know. The allegations are pretty awful for both things he's been accused of this offseason. Like, Matt, he's on a futures deal. Like, this is not a guy who's likely going to be an impact player for you. Like, I get standing by a Rashee Rice or someone else who did something bad. What is the point?
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs are always, for the most part, they'll give players the benefit of the doubt. They want to give them time. And that could very well be just, part of it what's here. Maybe they feel like that there's more to the story, more than we know. You're right. I mean, I agree that the report is very ugly, and it might be kind of surprising that the Chiefs haven't done anything. I mean, the only thing that gives me pause about it is that, I feel like it's one of two things. It's either one, that the Chiefs feel like that they know something that maybe isn't public, but that we know. Obviously, Isaiah's side and his agent in the past have said that there's just a dispute going on between Isaiah and the police, the leadership in the town because of his hookah shop. So maybe there are extenuating circumstances, but the more plausible Occam's razor might just be, Brendan, that it's June 21st and everybody's on vacation and nobody's worried about it. As far as, hey, you're literally not doing anything right now. There's no business that needs to be done. There's a lot of people just aren't even in the office. So it might just be that they're like, hey, let's wait till we get back from vacation, talk to Isaiah, figure out what's going on and go from there.
That makes sense. I can understand it. I guess to me, and this is obviously the opinion of someone who has never worked in an NFL front office, so maybe it just comes off as naive. It almost feels to me, though, Matt, like it's a layup. Like you had the Wanye Morris and Chukwuemeka Godric thing like that. Who cares? But also, what are you doing? Obviously, the Rashee Rice situation, not great. It just sort of feels to me as an outsider like take the easy PR when you get a chance, but maybe I'm naive to the situation.
No, I don't think you're naive. I mean, it's just again, I mean, sometimes there are extenuating circumstances, and that might be the case in this. And like I said, it might just be the case that there's literally nobody that push the buttons to get it done right now, and that they just want to wait until they all get back from their vacations to deal with it.
We're chatting with Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. He is our Chiefs insider, joins us every Friday at this time to talk all things Super Bowl champions football. He joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. All right, let's get into every Kansas Citian's favorite topic over the last year or so, Matt. Stadiums and state houses and star bonds and everything there. Let me start with a bigger picture franchise question for the Chiefs, because the Royals are obviously involved here too, and there's all sorts of minutia here. Do you think that Clark Hunt actively cares where the Chiefs' home stadium is? Like, everybody would love to stay at Arrowhead forever. I understand that. But when it comes to all the money and the tax benefits and breaks and the bonds and everything comes into play, do you think that the Chiefs' ownership really has a strong preference where their either new or improved stadium is?
It's a really good question. And I mean, something that we haven't really asked Clark. I mean, it's been, kind of framed in the past about, just about Arrowhead and his preference there. And, he's obviously has said that he'd like to honor his father's legacy and stay in Arrowhead as long as they can. I don't know. I mean, I think you probably have a reasonable argument there that there's not really any reason to care. You're gonna do business. You're gonna make money. It's where do you make the most money while you're doing business. I will say, I mean, the only thing that would lead me to believe that maybe there is some preference on the Hunt family to stay on the Missouri side is that they have a lot of other business enterprises that have a lot of focus on the Kansas City side. Obviously, I mean, it doesn't just start with, Worlds of Fun that they originally used to own and Oceans of Fun. I mean, there's huge swaths, thousands of acres of land that they own across Kansas City for residential, for storage. I mean, they've got the underground caves. I mean, the Hunt Enterprises is probably one of, if not the largest landowner in Kansas City, private landowners. So, and that's mostly, I'm not even sure if they have very many holdings on the Kansas side. They're almost all in Missouri. So I could see from just the overall business empire of the family that maybe there's some interest in staying in Missouri. But I think with the Chiefs, I mean, if you get a chance to make a lot more money and have a better deal in Kansas, I'm not sure you do care.
The fact that Kansas is able to do this without going to a vote, like in the state of Missouri, and there's plenty of political debate to have about that topic in particular. Does that, and the way that Kansas was able to pass this through the state house here in Topeka too, I mean, it went House to Senate to the governor's desk to pass in a very quick amount of time during the current special session. Does that make you believe any more strongly that a move to Kansas is possible? I've always been pessimistic that would happen, but the fact that Kansas has a plan for it and is clearly going whole hog to try to make this happen, do you feel any more swayed one way or the other that a move could happen?
I mean, I feel like the momentum is so far on the Kansas side that it's going to be difficult for Missouri to catch up. I mean, I know the Kansas City Mayor Quentin Lucas said the other day that this is just the first quarter of negotiations. But I mean, if you're Missouri, you're down 24-3. I mean, it may be the first quarter, but you are way behind right now. And there's a lot of pieces into place. I mean, it looks like there's a reasonable chance sports wagering is going to be on the ballot in November. That's the first piece. And if the voters take that out of control of the hands of the legislature, at least that's a move in the right direction. And then you would need an local entity to step up and get something done. I mean, you almost have to believe that if Missouri side is going to get done, it's going to have to be a Kansas City, Missouri, or a Clay County, someone else stepping in to say, we're going to be the entity that funds this thing. And if the state helps out down the road, great, but we're not going to depend on them because we can't wait until May of 2025 to put an offer in the Chiefs' hands. Somebody's going to have to step up pretty quick. And you're right. I mean, getting something before the voters, I mean, once again, that's not going to be an easy process. I mean, and the Star Bun process in Kansas and what you're able to do is so much more streamlined. I mean, right now, I mean, they're down to the point where you can just start talking development deals. And in Missouri, you're not even anywhere close to that. The only thing, Brendan, that really stands out to me is maybe being the hiccup in this is that I don't know, you might not be old enough to remember, but because I had to go back and look at it. I was relatively young myself back then when the Speedway was built, but that took a lot longer than people thought, and it didn't get through because there were a lot of lawsuits that had to go back and forth between landowners and all of this. Maybe you'll run into that again. There was some lawsuits, I think, over the Star Bond process. If you run into that, then maybe it could get delayed and slow down. But I feel like at this point, I think it's 90% plus that the Chiefs end up in Kansas.
90% plus.
Yeah, I feel like it's just Missouri is too far behind. I mean, maybe the Chiefs will give them a year. Maybe they will give them until May of 2025 to put together a proposal. But at this point, I mean, you're almost talking about it being too late to get anything on for this year. For sure, you're almost saying if you're going to get something before voters and you're a local entity, it's going to be April of 2025. And I'm still not convinced that the state and the General Assembly in Missouri can even agree on what color the sky is, much less put together something for the Chiefs and the Royals.
If I can address, and I know we're getting kind of into the political side of this, Matt, but you mentioned the fact that sports gambling could be on the ballot this fall in Missouri. And I know I remember reading a bunch about it the last time it was shot down, that there are a lot of greasy palms, okay, that have been, tied up in the sports gambling situation in Missouri and certain representatives with certain interests and all of that. If that were to pass, and I know we're playing the hypothetical game, but if that were to pass, do you think that would strengthen Missouri's ability to keep the Chiefs there? Because so many new stadiums or refurbished stadiums, one of the things that is becoming an added amenity, is, hey, there's a sports book attached to the stadium. So if you're the Chiefs and you could say, hey, the Royals are getting out of Dodge one way or the other, they're not going to be in the Truman Sports Complex forever. We're going to have all this room for hotels and restaurants and development, and maybe we can even build, DraftKings at Arrowhead Sportsbook or something. Do you think that would help entice the Chiefs to stay, or is even that maybe a little too late?
It might be too little too late, but the Chiefs can't stay without it. I mean, it is too big of a piece of, like you said, stadiums going forward. And President Mark Donovan's been talking about this for years, that when they do refurbish Arrowhead or they build a new stadium, whatever it's going to be, there's going to have to be wagering and sports betting a part of it. There's going to be kiosks in the stadium. There's going to be advertising. They already have sponsors lined up, companies that are paying them to be their official betting sponsors and their official fantasy sponsors. And those deals will only increase once the wagering, is available. And these companies can move in and put their kiosks into the stadiums. There's too much money to leave on the table not to do that. So, I mean, yeah, at this point, it is such a built-in idea of stadiums that you can't leave that on the table. So, if sports wagering doesn't pass in November, if it gets on the ballot, which it certainly looks like it will be in Missouri, if it doesn't pass, I think Missouri's chances go down to about 1%.
We're joined by our Chiefs insider, Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. It's something you mentioned just a little bit ago when you were talking about a reason why the Chiefs and the Hunt family would stay on the Missouri side is all the realty, all the property that they have there in Casey, Missouri, and that area. Do you think that maybe that flip side of that would be a reason they'd want to maybe move to near the racetrack area and the Bonner Springs area and the Legends area, because they can create like what would be their own property, kind of like a Patriots place, like the Patriots have up in Foxborough?
Yeah, and that's a great point. And I think that, one, not only is this an opportunity for obviously everybody involved. I mean, for Mark Donovan, for Clark Hunt, his siblings. I mean, it's obviously an opportunity for them to put their stamp on this organization, this generation, and really create something. And I think that's important to all of them. I mean, I think they've been waiting for this opportunity, and they were fine with wherever it needed to be. I mean, if it needed to be reimagining Arrowhead and creating a new place there, and the renderings, I mean, we saw for if Jackson County had passed the tax, I mean, it was such a placeholder document. I mean, I think that would have changed dramatically had the tax actually passed. I think there would have been a lot of changes to it. But there's no doubt. But there's also the other point. I think kind of makes me think the next few steps after you mentioned that is that we're not just talking about a stadium. The team needs a new headquarters. They've outgrown their building that they're in right now. They need a new training complex. So, if you could keep one of those in Missouri, maybe both of those stay in Missouri, and you build a new stadium in Kansas. I mean, you've got a lot of possibilities, and they don't need to be attached. I mean, you could have your business operations separate from your football side. Some teams do that. So, you could have those pieces. The training camp is another piece. You could keep that in Missouri if you go to Kansas, or vice versa. The Chiefs were very close to, moving to Pittsburgh a few years ago for Pittsburgh State to host training camp. They put in a competitive bid. So it's not unheard of as the Chiefs would leave St. Joe, although I think it's a short-term consideration, because after Andy Reid's done, I don't think the Chiefs are going to be going away for a camp. I think they'll move it back to the facility, which is one of the reasons why, if you're building a place, maybe you look to the Cowboys in Frisco, what they have. They have a training complex that can host high school football games and all sorts of competitive events. There's multiple fields, so it can be more of a community around the year facility. Maybe you do that if you're the Chiefs, and you build something like that, and you could build that on one side of the state, this line, and the stadium goes on the other.
If the Chiefs wanted to move camp and they were on the Kansas side of the border, There is a beautiful indoor facility right here in Topeka, Matt, on the campus of Washburn University. There ain't a whole lot of schools out there with a facility like that. I'm just saying, if Andy Reid and the Chiefs were thinking about maybe let's go west for camp, we've got facilities in this town I think they could live with.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine, I have to imagine that they would be putting their arm up and making the say, hey, we could do that. I mean, I think there's probably this camp will never leave St. Joe because I think Andy Reid is such a creature of habit that
Sure.
he wants to stay there unless things fall apart, unless they come to him and say we can make a lot more money somewhere else. But because he just likes the fact that everybody knows what they're doing. I mean, there's nothing they have to learn. It's all set in place. But no, I mean, I think Washburn would be a good place. Pittsburgh State obviously would be a great place. There's probably a few others that would love to have it too.
Last thing, Matt, on the field really quickly here. We've got just under a minute of time, but we were listening to a clip earlier from Justin Reid on the Greenlight podcast with Chris Long this week, where he said the plan is that he is going to do kickoff specialty stuff this year with the new kickoff rules. I remember talking about that after Dave Tobe brought it up. I did not realize, though, that was the actual plan. Were you aware previously that was not maybe concrete, but the way we were heading?
It has been suggested that might be the way that they go, that maybe Justin Reid does do it all the time, that they only have Butker do it if they want something special done, like they decide that they do want to go ahead and put it out of the back of the end zone for a touchback, or they're looking for some finesse that they want the ball put in a certain place. I think there's a reasonable chance that Justin Reid does handle most of their kickoffs. I think they do. They want to get to camp and they want to get to the preseason and see how it looks and works for sure. But right now, I think there's a reasonable chance that he takes the majority of the kicks.
I think he was right, too, in that podcast where he said this might extend my career. I think it'll definitely extend his career if it actually works out. Matt Derrick covers the Chiefs for ChiefsDigest.com and does it better than absolutely anybody over there. Find him on Twitter as well, at Matt Derrick. He joins us every week right here on 580 Sports Talk for our Chiefs Insider. Thanks so much, Matt. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely, guys. Take care, everybody.
That is some fascinating stuff on the stadium from Matt Derrick. We'll talk about that and some college football next hour right here on 580 Sports Talk from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Zero, live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. This is 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan Dorzinski. That is Spencer Dupuis. Our Spencer intern, Trenton Craxner, is in the building on the other side of the glass.
Did you say our Spencer intern?
Did I say that? Sorry. Our summer intern. You are not specifically Spencer's
I didn't know I had an intern. I would have been using him to give me lunch for all these weeks.
Well, surprise, you do not. My apologies. Our summer intern, Trenton Craxner, is on the other side of the glass. Dan Lucero, he is out on paternity leave for today. He's back on Monday, though. Dan's missed a bunch.
You really have.
That's the only down. Like, take vacation. It's good. And, life's hard enough. Take the time you get off. If they're going to pay you, take it. But when you work in the business we work in, so much happens. Like last week with the Big 12 private equity stuff.
Yeah.
I know that was killing Dan to not be here for that. He told us.
He
it was
even
killing
isn't
him.
even taking at this time. He's not even taking all of the leave.
I know he's coming back. He missed us
he could
too
miss
much.
even more.
I know he wanted to,
but he's not.
Come back and be here for you guys. So he'll be back coming up on Monday next week to hang out with us and get to tell us about the first couple of weeks of being a dad. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and then I'll be in the third chair.
Yes, we'll have to do
we'll have to
musical chairs
figure
again.
out how that's going to work with the signage up. I think I might have to sit over here.
Yeah, we'll make it work.
Yeah.
We'll turn the camera slightly in your direction where you're currently sitting on the far side of the studio. Dan can slide a little bit. We'll make it work.
We'll make it work.
I don't think Dan's ever sat in that spot. I did. When I first started, that was always where I sat, to the left of where I am right now. Dan sat over there. We kind of triangulated.
Yeah, you didn't have cameras and Britt was your producer, right?
Yeah, we had Britt, we had Marco for a while who was producing. I was in there sometimes. We did not have cameras. That is very true. That is still we've been doing the cameras for a long time now. It was Halloween. So yes, October of 2022 was our first videoed show. And we've been doing video for every show ever since. I feel bad. Our guy Joe on YouTube today. Feel like Dan won't blaspheme the Royals like you two Judases have today. Well,
I said I was being pessimistic here, and I was for the content of the show. I think they were a good team.
For what it's worth, I did say I think they're going to find their level here. It's just been unpleasant to watch the offense for the last 11 days.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's controversial.
But I did warrant what I said. I literally specified. I said, no, don't give me any hate here. This is just a hypothetical.
I think that's like saying no offense.
Yeah.
I think that just because you say don't hate, I don't think that necessarily means that hate's not coming. If you've missed any of the show so far today, check out the podcast page on our website. That is at 580wibw.com.
Shout out Mark. We're just keeping it real.
Yeah, we're doing our best. And of course, you can also go check it out on YouTube, 580 Sports Talk. That's where you can see us video streaming today. In the 5 o'clock hour, we're going to listen back to a little of what Matt Derrick just told us last hour during our Chiefs Insider, because he said 90% he thinks the Chiefs are coming to Kansas, not the Royals. I've been thinking the Royals are going to make the move. He said 90% that he thinks the Chiefs are going to move. And if they don't get sports gambling passed, it might be 99%.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And I don't, I'm not challenging Matt on that at all, because I trust Matt with Chief stuff more than anyone. I'm floored that someone as tied in and connected who knows the team as well as he does is that convinced. 90%, that's a lot. That's many percents. You've almost maxed out your percents.
Yeah.
If you're at 90. That's crazy. We're going to listen back to that. News from Laura Kelly's desk today as well. She did pass the legislation. We assumed that would be the case once it got to Governor Kelly, that she was going to pass that through. Look, we'll get to this more in the 5 o'clock hour, but I will say there are some folks on the other side of the state line who have said, well, of course, Kansas was able to pass this because they didn't actually ask their citizens. Well, y'all are mad at your citizens over there, too, for voting no.
Yeah. One thing I'd say, which I think would be a broader topic for another day, this is all hypothetical. This be a summer conversation. Will moving a stadium across a state line change who comes to the games? because that's the big topic right now
Mhm.
for the Commanders that I hear on when I listen to the Sports Talk podcast out there. It's like even the people that were in Maryland were mad when Ted Leonsis was going to move the Wizards and Capitals literally 5 minutes outside of DC.
Right.
Like people in Maryland were like, I'm not going to another game. So is Missouri going to start being like that?
So it's funny you bring that up because I just saw this today from Arrowhead Pride. There was a poll over at SB Nation about if the Chiefs switched across the state line, would you still be a fan of the team? 87% said yes. Online polls, you always need to lean toward pessimism with something like this when it's such a controversial topic. So to have an 87% reaction to that poll, I think is pretty high. Realistically, I'd say it's like 98%. There are going to be weirdos because there are people who live in Missouri who just hate Kansas so much, like the Norm Stewarts of the world, and I don't understand it. Like if I was a fan of a Kansas City team, who cares? It's a stadium. And I like Arrowhead itself is important and unique and valuable to the Chiefs' identity. If you're most upset about not being at Arrowhead Stadium, I understand. But if it goes to Kansas, it might as well be moving to Alaska. I think that's stupid. And I'm sorry if that bothers certain people from the Show Me State. I think that's very dumb. It's in the same metro, except instead of people from the West traveling extra far to get to a game, now people from the East are going to have to travel a little extra far for the game. I just don't think it matters all that much. I really matters in terms of supporting the team or going to a game. I really don't think it matters.
I don't think it matters either. And that's just what happens over time. I mean, stadiums move to different spots. Like when I was living in the Virginia area and I would go to Washington Commanders games, I have to drive extra long. If they do indeed move to Virginia, it's like, oh, well, those people that went before didn't have to drive extra long.
Mm-hmm.
Those people in Maryland are going to have to reap what we had to do.
Yeah,
it all will balance itself out, right? Like it's a balance.
It's all still Kansas City.
Yeah.
It's all still the same metro area. I think it's dumb, personally. I'm not, y'all know this is not where I was born. I didn't grow up in Kansas City or Overland Park or Belton or anything like that. I moved here and I've made my home here in Topeka. But I think of, I'm never spending a dime in Kansas. Well, that sounds dumb. That you sound stupid saying that. I'm sorry if you don't like that, but that sounds very stupid.
The 913 just sent us a great text. Arrowhead to the Legends is 19 miles.
Yeah, that's not that big of a deal.
No.
It's really not. We have a couple other texts here to the Top City Metal Supply text line. We will get to more stadium stuff in the 5 o'clock hour. We'll hear back a little of what Matt had to say. We'll hear the entirety of our conversation with Matt and Derrick as well coming up in 580 Sports Talk Overtime today. I do want to get to... We did just get a text about Uncle Cracker. We did give away our Kenny Chesney tickets for today. I want to give a shout out to Gary, who is the winner of today's Kenny Chesney tickets. Do not worry. We have 2 more chances the next 2 Fridays to give you tickets to go see Kenny Chesney. A pair of tickets today, a pair next Friday, and a pair the Friday after that as well for the July 6th Kenny Chesney concert with Zach Brown Band, with Megan Maroney, and yes, with Uncle Cracker.
Who is still alive.
Who is indeed still alive.
As we know right now.
At Arrowhead Stadium. We'll have 2 more chances each of the next 2 Fridays here on 580 Sports Talk. There is some college football, Spencer, that I wanted to get to today. Phil Steele, who is great. Great. The magazine, awesome. I saw some people complaining the other day, like half of his recaps or half of his write-ups on teams are just him saying how right he was a year before. And they were annoyed by it. But I thought, I want to buy something from a guy who is right. That's important to me. I want to know that what I'm reading has value and he gets things correct. That's an important thing to me. So that's a very strange complaint. I think he does a great job. I haven't gotten my Phil Steele physical magazine yet. I cannot wait to go get it. It's one of the best days of the year, every single year for college football. But he came out in his magazine, he does every year, with his preseason top 40. Okay, not just top 25, a top 40. And he is not very high on the Big 12 at all. Highest ranked Big 12 team he has is number 8, Utah. First year in the Big 12. They are going to be very old. Cam Rising is back after missing all of last season with an injury. They've got a bunch of other old dudes on that team. I think Kyle Whittingham is one of the best coaches in the country. I would make Utah my favorite to win the Big 12. Vegas is doing the same. So I've got no problem with them in the top 10 at number 8. The next team on the list is Oklahoma State. You have heard me tell you for weeks now, Spencer, I don't understand why Vegas is so low on Oklahoma State and so many people are just glossing over them. That surprises me. So I'm with Phil Steele on them being ranked. Now, I think 15 is a little high. And the reason why is because I think K-State is better than Oklahoma State. He's got K-State down at 23rd. 8 spots below Oklahoma State. Are we certain about that right now? I'm not. That's strange to me. Those are your top 3 teams he's got from the Big 12. 8 for Utah, 15 Oklahoma State, 23 for Kansas State. I don't know about that one, Chief. Think that's not a very strong concentration in your top 25. After that, the next Big 12 teams he has, back-to-back, Iowa State and Arizona, 29 and 30. I think that's probably fair for Arizona, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone wanted to rank them higher. I think the same for Iowa State. We just talked to Shahan Jayaraja on Tuesday's show, where he said, I think people are underrating Iowa State. They have the most returning production in the country this coming year with a quarterback who's got plenty of starting experience and obviously a good head coach. You know, I like to go after Matt Campbell, but he's a hell of a coach, obviously. And then the last 2 from the Big 12 here. Number 35, he's got West Virginia. And at number 37, he's got Kansas. Spencer, can you tell me why someone would pick West Virginia over Kansas this year?
I don't know. We kind of had this conversation on Monday or Tuesday show.
You mean we were talking about Garrett Green?
About quarterback.
Yeah.
Yes. I have no clue. I guess they think Jalen Daniels is going to be hurt all season long.
I guess. But, like, go position by position, team by team. Who are you taking as your quarterback, assuming health? I always assume health. Because, and yeah, JD's obviously had problems the last 2 years, but it's football. Guys get hurt. If Garrett Green gets hurt, okay, well, that's a him injury problem. Who would you rather have as your quarterback, all things considered? Jalen Daniels or Garrett Green?
Jalen Daniels.
Who would you rather have as the rest of your offensive playmakers? I'm going to take the team with Devin Neal, Luke Grimm, Quentin Skinner, and LJ Arnold. That's who I'm taking. Which coach would you rather have? Neil Brown or Lance Leipold?
Lance Leipold by a landslide.
I don't get that one at all. I think overall, he is really bearish on the Big 12. I think to an extreme degree. That one to me stands out the most. Is there anything else looking through this top 40 involving the Big 12 or any other team that just feels wrong to you? That's the number one to me. If you're down on KU because you think Jalen Daniels is going to get hurt and the offensive line has lost some stuff, fine. But below West Virginia, that I have a hard time believing that.
Yeah, I do as well.
That's the number one thing that stands out to me here. What do you think about that Oklahoma State and K-State setup? I would say K-State is probably, I would put them both in the neighborhood of like 20 right now if I was putting together a preseason ranking.
Yeah, I think he really likes UTSA, putting them at 21 over Kansas State. I mean, UTSA is a smaller conference team, clearly. Conference USA team, I still believe. I don't get it. I think Kansas State could be way better than UTSA.
I think so. I think the potential for K-State is really, really high. I mean, they won the league 2 years ago. Kansas State
is Missouri really going to be that good this year?
They're expected to be pretty good. I don't know who's starting at quarterback for them. I don't know if it's Sam Horn. I don't think Brady Cook has any more eligibility. If he does, good for him. I don't think they'll be as good as they were last season. I was watching some highlights on YouTube the other day, just trying to get a college football fix. I hate saying it because I hate Missouri. I hate them so much. I hate the way that they walk, the way that they talk, the way that they dress. I hate everything about them. Luther Burden is a freak. That dude is special, and I hate it so much. Thankful that KU will never have to play him because the Border War series does not start again until next year, I think. And Luther Burden's going to the NFL after this year, I believe. I'm glad KU's not going to have to play that dude because he is a stud. 18 feels a little high to me for Missouri, too. I would agree with you on that. I think Oklahoma State is about 5 spots too high. I think K-State's about 5 spots too low. Oh, the point I was going to make, though, is K-State won the conference 2 years ago. Dan and I were there at the Big 12 championship game. One of the best games I've ever been to, by the way. It ruled. That was a really fun game. And Will Howard was great in that game. He was great. But I think we've all known, even when Will Howard was at his best, I think we've all known that you had a ceiling with Will Howard, a high ceiling, a high ceiling. But you had a ceiling. And it was the same with Adrian Martinez last year. Good player, gave a lot, cared about K-State. It was an important year for him. But you were always going to be somewhat limited. I feel like that ceiling is higher for Kansas State this year. And if you wanted to counter that and say, okay, fine, I also think the floor is lower because we don't have a whole lot of proof of concept with Avery Johnson as a full-time starter yet, I would listen to that argument. I would. I do think there are concerns when you start a guy who's going to be a redshirt freshman quarterback. Totally understand that. I just think when you talk about potential, you talk about the running options with that team, and especially if you project or think Avery Johnson's going to be that dude, I just think they would be a top 20 team in the preseason, personally. And again, if you don't think KU's top 25, fine. Whatever. We all have our opinions. I would put KU in the top 25. I do not see Kansas being worse than West Virginia. I have a very hard time reconciling that, to be completely honest with you. Or below Nebraska. Nebraska?
I don't think Nebraska's going to be that good this year.
Number 33 in the whole country?
I think they're going to be better. I don't think they're 33 in the country.
I don't think they're better than KU, which, by the way, if you went back like any year other than 2007 in college football history and you said, oh yeah, Kansas is definitely better than Nebraska, people would say, are you a time traveler? Are you lying to me? That is like unthinkable, but it's legitimately true. 33, that is way too high for Nebraska. Even though I agree with you, Spencer, I do think they'll be better. I think they'll be a bowl team for sure this year. Some other lists that came out in Phil Steele's preview magazine, his all Big 12 teams. This one is shocking.
I found this the other day. Remember? Because when we were giving that argument.
I wanted to parse through it and look at a few more specifics. There are no K-State players on his first team. And in fairness, I don't know who you would put on that list. He's got Easton Kilty on the offensive line as a second-team preseason guy. Uso Seumalo, he's got him second team. Same with Austin Moore at linebacker, Jordan Riley at safety. So he's got a ton of K-Staters on the second team all-league. I don't know, man. I could see an argument for Austin Moore being first team all conference. I'd probably not say Amalu. I would listen to an argument for it. Jordan Riley's a nice player. That was surprising to me. And here's the other one. I'm going to talk about this dude until he retires and probably even beyond that. Devin Neal is a better running back than Taj Brooks. I'm going to tell you that right now. I said it last year. Taj Brooks is a really nice player. He is a really nice player, running back for Texas Tech. Devin Neal's a better player. I'm going to stick with that right now. He's got Devin Neal as a second-team running back. Kobe Bryant, first-team cornerback in his all Big 12 teams. Other KU guys in the top group for him, along with Devin Neal on the second team. He's got Jeremy Robinson at second-team defensive end. I like Jeremy Robinson, maybe a little high, but that's fine. And Mello Dotson, second-team all Big 12 preseason cornerback as well. And then a handful of other K-Staters that are grouped in elsewhere and KU players who are grouped in elsewhere. Two things for me, two things that feel like snubs. I get not putting Jalen Daniels on here because of the injuries. And clearly Phil Steele is putting a lot of weight on JD's injury past. And fine, I can understand that argument. Jalen Daniels is a better quarterback than Rocco Becht. I like Rocco Becht at Iowa State. I said it during last season. I don't think people were talking enough about him and the way he played. I like his game. He's not better than Jalen Daniels. And if you're going to say it's all about injuries, I disagree, but fine. But he's better than Rocco Becht. If you put both of them on the field at the same time, I'm taking Jalen Daniels 10 times out of 10. The guy for K-State I couldn't believe wasn't included was Dylan Edwards. I'm surprised they did not even, or Phil Steele, did not even put him as fourth team running back. DJ Giddens made it third team all Big 12. I think you can make an argument Dylan Edwards is one of the 8 best running backs in the Big 12. Maybe you didn't believe in last year's Colorado team, but even that doesn't hold a whole lot of weight because he's got Shedeur Sanders, second team all-league. So I got some disagreements, I think, with Phil Steele's preseason team here. This is a very talented group, a really talented group in the Big 12 this year. It is the best running back conference in the country, by far. Devin Neal, Ollie Gordon, the two guys at K-State both, Taj Brooks, the two dudes at UCF as well, Penny Hart and RJ Harvey, both of them studs. Scatterbo at Arizona State's a good player. Abu Sama, K-State fans, you still might be seeing Abu Sama running all over you from that snow game at the end of last season. This is a great year for offense and especially running backs in the Big 12. I'm just surprised that with all of that talent, he's so low on the league overall. That is a little surprising to me. Some comments to get to here from YouTube. This one's from our guy, Jayhawker. This is the best offense KU will put on the field since the Orange Bowl year. The only hang-up I have with the offense, and I don't even know if it's a hang-up, it's just sort of a wait-and-see feeling, is just about the quarterback, or not the quarterback, I'm sorry, the offensive line situation. I like the players individually. Losing Dominic Pooney is tough. Dominic Pooney was a kick-ass player. He was great for the last 2 years for KU. Mike Nowitzki, not the world's greatest athlete, but he was such a rock at center for KU. And Amarje Reid Adams as well transferring out. That's tough. So you're going to have 3 new starters in that group. I do think there's a lot of talent on this team, especially with Logan Brown, the Wisconsin transfer. Sounds like he had a really good spring camp. I'm excited for the group. I just want to see it all mesh together. But our Jayhawker mentions, too, on YouTube, he thinks if Jalen Daniels is healthy, this is the top 15 team in the country. If the defense holds up front, if they can get after the quarterback an average number of times, I agree. I think this KU team has that potential. That's the biggest concern for me, is just getting into too many games where the only way you can win is outscoring. Love the secondary, love the playmakers, love the quarterback situation. You just got to get after the quarterback a decent amount, and I think this team can be in that conversation. From Jason on YouTube, I am really excited about Big 12 football. I'm a K-State fan. I'm hoping they're at the top, but I think it'll be a good battle. I think KU and West Virginia will be stabbing at the top 2 spots. That's a lot of hype for West Virginia as well. You could give me an argument for a lot of different teams to finish in that top 4. A lot of different ones. And top 2 or 3, you're going to have a chance at the college football playoff with the new 12-team expansion. Jason also adds, I'm also happy that Texas and Oklahoma are out. Yeah, I'm glad it's done. I'm glad the realignment stuff is over. Let's just move on beyond it. I think the league is set up for a lot of fun football here in the near-term future. I agree. They can do their SEC thing.
We got another, 10 days till it's official.
Yeah, I think it was
July 1st, right?
July 1st. Yeah, that's right. I saw Ole Miss today. They posted a picture of Eli Manning with number 10 and said 10 days till we get more SEC.
And then 10 days till the same thing until Big 12 gets those new teams.
That's true. Yeah, I guess Utah, Arizona State, and
I saw that today.
Colorado are not official yet.
Yeah,
but
it's not till the start of the physical year or whatever they call it, the conference year.
So 10 days would be, what was that? 7, 8. So it'll be July 1st. Yeah.
July 1.
So yeah, 2 Mondays from now, we'll get to celebrate. Hey, we finally have the new teams in the Big 12. Joe on YouTube, it just means more. That's pretty good. Coming up a little bit later on this hour, we've got some more Chiefs football to get to. Plus, up next, we will find our weekly winner in What Is Wrong With You. That's coming up here on 580 Sports Talk, live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. We're live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio as we get ready to pick our weekly winner in What Is Wrong With You. Our current winner for the week. We have to go all the way back to Tuesday. Didn't have What Is Wrong With You yesterday. We didn't have a show on Wednesday. Mr. Turn Off Your Phone. Guy who was trying to rob a store. Was it a store that he was robbing? There was a disturbance at a facility. And this guy who had been committing the disturbance, he was wanted for violating his probation. He was on the run. He had been convicted of burglary previously. So this business where he was causing a commotion, he hopped into the ceiling, climbed through a ceiling tile, and was hiding up there. But the police were able to find him because they were monitoring him. And they knew exactly where his location was. Even though they didn't see him in the store, they knew, okay, he's here somewhere. We're monitoring him. He then made it especially easy on them to find him. His phone went off. You idiot. You complete dunce. Let his phone go off in the building. So that is our current winner for this week. Spencer, why don't you lead us off today?
Well, I am changing mine.
Oh!
Because I found one, but when I found it earlier, it was just a video and a little short, like 1-sentence blurb.
Okay.
So now I don't know if you saw this video on Go Viral the other day.
I did not.
So there's a guy in Manhattan. The man hurls lawn chairs off
Manhattan, New York.
Yes, Manhattan.
This is not Manhattan, Kansas.
Not the little apple. Man hurls lawn chairs off top of 20-story NYC building in bizarre caught on video tantrum.
Antonio Brown?
I thought you were going to say Morgan Wallen.
It could be Morgan Wallen. That's right.
It's ironic because he was in New York, but the start of the story from the New York Post, a Florida man hurled lawn chairs and other items off a 20-story Midtown Manhattan high-rise in a bizarre caught-on-camera tantrum with the debris narrowly missing passersby on the street below.
Yikes.
Gene Oliver, 33, whose last known address is in the city of West Park, is seen in a brief clip tossing the chairs from a landing one level down from the roof of 555 Fifth Avenue, an office building near East 46th Street that houses Barnes & Noble on the ground floor. Oliver had apparently visited the Consulate General of Haiti inside the building, complaining about housing, then flipped out and threw a chair, law enforcement officials said, as I have to go down because there's more video. He also threw several plant-like objects down onto the busy street, which a passing motorcyclist narrowly avoided as he whizzed by, according to the footage. Another video shows Oliver waving his arms around as onlookers inside buildings across the street filmed the ordeal. Vendor Mobilibo Casico said Casico. I don't know how to say that.
I believe his name is Madibo.
Madibo Casico said he witnessed the chair flinging freak out that lasted about a half hour. Quote, I saw a lot of looking and panicking and police come, he told the New York Post on Tuesday. I wasn't there when it started, but that's what I saw. Responding police were able to find and cuff Oliver, police said. He was charged with burglary, reckless endangerment, criminal mischief, criminal trespass. Cops said he had no prior arrests. So that's why I thought it was What Is Wrong With You, because he had no prior arrests.
So it was just a true freak out then.
Yeah, he was not a known criminal.
Wow.
But so I saw this story earlier and it was just a 1-sentence description of the video. And I was like, well, then that's no fun.
Yeah, a little more detail
I want to
here.
give some detail. So then I just found this story.
Not to be agonizingly pretentious, but knowing that this gentleman has some connections to Haiti, he might be Haitian. I'm going to guess his name is Jean Olivier.
There you go. Probably better than what I was saying.
Gene Oliver is a great Americanization, though. I'm going to be honest with you. That's wild.
Yeah.
You could kill someone doing that. Like,
Yeah.
if you throw a chair off a 20-story building, you could kill someone. Holy cow. My story today is going to take us to Tampa, Florida, where a Tampa dentist has been accused of sending online threats to multiple people, including a politician, and he has since been arrested. Federal investigators say that Richard Cantwell sent hundreds of online messages threatening injury or death, even after agents with the FBI told him to stop. The 60-year-old faces 3 counts related to interstate transmission of a threat to injure. In a motion for a pretrial detention, hearing. State attorneys urged a federal judge to hold Cantwell without bond until his trial begins because he poses a danger to his community. Court records also presented a few of the threats made by Cantwell. Redacted text messages and emails contain apparent expletives, including what appear to be both racial and anti-gay slurs. In one text message, Cantwell made death threats to a person he identified as a fake reverend. Quote, "Being the antichrist piece of bleep that you are, we are going to kill you. Torture first, then death." The victim installed nearly $4,500 worth of surveillance cameras due to his genuine fear of Cantwell, according to the court. A private message sent by Cantwell through Instagram to another person reads, quote, "Cannot wait to shoot your ghetto ass in the street," followed by a racial slur. No, this is not Mark Mangino. In September 2019, he also wrote to a victim support for a certain well-known politician, and then added, "Bleep you and your family. Hire extra security. You're going to need it." This man is insane. In the next month, the FBI interviewed Cantwell and told him to stop sending the messages. Dude, if the FBI comes after you and says, "Hey, please stop," and doesn't just arrest you right away, maybe take their advice and just stop.
Yeah.
Despite the warning, Cantwell spent the next 10 months sending threats to over 40 victims via social media and email. In February, he then threatened a politician as well, who was not named in court. Take note, because bleeps like you get bleeped in alleys. You are our number one target, you degenerative bleep.
Wow.
This is insane. He also had a large collection of guns that he bragged on Facebook he would never surrender. He wrote that he enjoyed the violence of military service and loved creating widows and orphans. This is one of the worst people in America. Hilariously, on his dentistry website, his philosophy reads that patients expect to be treated with kindness, compassion, and personalized care. All-time bad guy here.
Yeah.
Dr. Richard Cantwell.
A lot of expletives in there.
Yeah, lots of expletives. Whole lot of them. All right, who's our winner for today, Spencer?
I think it's yours only because the fact that you had to go through a whole story and quote this guy while trying to abide by FCC guidelines and being able to do so.
There were a lot of slurs. There's a lot of cursing. That's not great. Does that story, because I think I'm with you. Maybe I'm projecting
so
here.
Like it's just so out of.
Makes me think that maybe he had a little bit of an episode. Like maybe some wires got crossed upstairs.
Yeah.
That's so out of character.
I think crossing wires happened in both stories.
Well, that's certainly true. Does that beat our story from the other day, though? The guy who was wanted and had his phone go off, giving away his position.
I don't think so, only because this dude is giving away his position. He's being dumb that way.
Yeah, I'm going to go with you. Such a simple thing.
Yes.
Turn it on silent. That's all you need to do.
Yeah.
You would have survived at least a little bit longer, but he couldn't even do that. I'm with you, Mr. Turn Your Phone Off. He wins today. He wins this week in What Is Wrong With You, a certainly very well-deserved weekly winner. We do have some comments here from Mark on YouTube. Holy crap. Wow. This dude really sucks. Yes. Mark, that is a perfect way to sum up that story from today. Yes. But it is Mr. Turn Off Your Phone who gets the win in What Is Wrong With You. Coming up next, one NFL writer has two players being extended as his biggest remaining offseason need for the Chiefs before training camp. Why he might be barking up the wrong tree. We'll tell you why next on 580 Sports Talk, live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Brendan Spencer Trenton here with you on 580 Sports Talk from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Comment here from YouTube from Jason asking, how's Will Howard going to do at Ohio State? We talked about this with Fitz a few weeks ago. I think Will Howard's a good college quarterback. There are people hyping him up like a Heisman favorite.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier in the month.
The 24/7 quarterback rankings, right? He was being talked about as the number 2 best quarterback in the Big Ten this coming year. Some people may even have him number 1. And yet Avery Johnson, the guy who ran Will Howard out of town, was number 7 in the Big 10, or in the Big 12, excuse me. I don't know what Avery Johnson's going to be, but that feels wrong. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think he'll be good. I think Will Howard is better than Kyle McCord. They still won a ton of games last year, even with Kyle McCord as their quarterback. I think Howard is going to be darn good this year. I don't think he's going to be great. I don't think it's suddenly going to change the trajectory of Big Ten football or anything. He'll be good. He'll be an improvement from what they had last year. Still a downgrade from C.J. Stroud and Justin Fields, who was bad in the NFL but was a great college quarterback. Like, that's probably where he's going to be this year. Nothing against Will. I like Will Howard. I've gotten to speak with him, have interviewed him a few times. Good dude, but the reaction to him is bizarre just because he's at Ohio State. It's very, very weird to me. Real quick, from ESPN Plus today, written, not video. Aaron Schatz, who was at Football Outsiders for forever, now does some work for, even more work for ESPN. He posted earlier this week the final moves that every team should consider making here. One last major offseason move before training camp begins in just under a month. He's got one for every team here. For the Kansas City Chiefs, he says extend center Creed Humphrey, okay, and right guard Trey Smith. Here's what he says. This one is pretty easy. Is that so? The Chiefs might have the best interior offensive line in the league now that Jason Kelce is retired, but both Humphrey and Smith see their contracts end after the 2024 season. Kansas City needs to lock down its offensive line for the next few years and keep Humphrey and Smith through their primes. So in principle, I agree. If you were to ask me of the 4, really 3, but I'll throw Justin Reid in as a 4th. If you were to ask me, you get 2 of the 4 who you can re-sign to a long-term deal. Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, Nick Bolton, or Justin Reid. And if you throw out Reid if you want, because those other guys were all drafted in 2021. Those 3 guys were drafted the same year. You can keep 2 of them. Who would you keep? I think the Chiefs would say Humphrey and Bolton. That would be my expectation. I would take Humphrey and Smith. And the reason why...
I would take Smith and Bolton because of the...
Really?
Yeah, the snap issues.
That is a concern. I can understand that.
Continues.
He's such a good blocker. Like, the snap thing needs to be fixed, and I hope it is this offseason. He has just dominated in, especially pass pro, the last couple years. I think his value is there. Like, Trey Smith is one of the league's better guards. I think Humphrey is the NFL's best center and would be cheaper than Smith, given how much the guard market blew up this year. I would pay both of them because the most important thing for your franchise is protecting Patrick Mahomes.
That's true.
That is of number 1 importance. Whereas on the other side of the ball, you say, well, Nick Bolton's the green dot. He is the quarterback of the defense. Spags trusts him a ton. Understood. I get it. Drew Tranquil had the green dot a couple times last year. It's not like they won't have anyone who can call signals. It's not like they became the worst defense in the league last year. In fact, for being honest, that defense was still really good even without Nick Bolton this past year. Like, really damn good even without Nick Bolton this past year. That, to me, is one reason why I also think I would place more emphasis on keeping together a strong offensive line than a strong linebacker core, to me. And you want to get talent in that defensive room, or the set of defensive rooms, the entire defense, but you can find other linebackers. You can, and you can probably find guys who are a similar level, who are going to produce at a similar level to Nick Bolton. Now, that being said, while I would extend the 2 linemen, this is interesting from John Dixon over at Arrowhead Pride. said it's impossible to argue that Humphrey and Smith have not earned the opportunity for a second NFL contract. The only question is whether or not the Chiefs will offer it. And he's got plenty of context here about the Chiefs not re-signing interior linemen. Rodney Hudson and Mitch Morse, the last two second-round centers Kansas City acquired, signed big contracts with new teams after their deals expired in Kansas City. After allowing Hudson to sign with Oakland in 2015, Dorsey selected Morse in that year's draft. Veach then permitted Morse to go sign with the Bills in 2019. And then after filling that position with Austin Ryder and Austin Blythe for a while, they filled it with Creed Humphrey in the draft in 2021. Smith's selection in 2021 was evidence that Veach didn't necessarily believe he needed to use a high pick on a quality player, although Smith should have been a day 2 pick. The medical concerns are why he dropped all the way to the third day. Before that, the last time the Chiefs had an early round guard coming off a rookie contract was Jeff Allen in 2016. Dorsey did not re-sign him. He went to Houston, but then came back as depth a couple years later. There's not a lot of history that suggests Kansas City will extend the contracts of either Humphrey or Smith. They also, as we have pointed out, and Spencer, you've made note of this a couple of times talking about this offense, they drafted Hunter Norzad and CJ Hansen, 2 interior linemen during the draft this year.
Yeah.
Which, is that a sign that maybe they are willing to move on from those guys? It might be. They might only want to bring one of those guys back. Hunter Norzad might be your next right guard starter. He might be your next center starter, while either Humphrey or Smith retains their spot on a long-term contract. I don't know for sure, but that's, I think, important context to know that the Chiefs historically, both in the John Dorsey regime and now the Brett Veach regime, they have not really spent on interior offensive linemen other than Joe Thuney, who they got as a free agent. They've very much been kind of pump and dump with their offensive linemen, get what you can out of them on the interior, and then let them move on. I don't know if that's a prognostication and projection thing. I don't know if it's different because these guys have been so good. I would bring them both back over Nick Bolton. I don't think the Chiefs will. I still think you pay Humphrey over Smith. But I'm a little surprised that Aaron Schatz, who's a great NFL writer, said that this one is pretty easy, because for all those reasons I just mentioned, I don't think this is all that easy at all. In fact, this seems quite problematic when you've got all these different guys you have to try to work things out with. I know it sounds like sacrilege to some to say I'm not the biggest Nick Bolton fan. Again, good team leader. He's the green dot. He's a smart player. He's an important player for that defense. Yes. You picked up Drew Tranquil off the street for $1 year, $6 million last season, and he was your best linebacker. I was watching a clip from the Only Weird Games podcast over at KC Sports Network. Seth Keister, friend of the program, Nate Taylor, Josh Briscoe, the podcast they do over at KCSN. And Seth Keister made a point about why Willie Gay was allowed to walk in free agency, just talking about some of the offseason moves, and said that he's not really what the Chiefs wanted at a linebacker spot long-term, although in Super Bowl 57, he was the best linebacker on the field. So you're telling me in back-to-back Super Bowls that the best linebacker on the field was not Nick Bolton, and this year you could argue he was the third best linebacker on the field after Leo Chanel and Drew Tranquil? That to me sounds like a guy who's more replaceable than 2 far above average offensive linemen, but that's just me. We've got 1 hour left today on 580 Sports Talk. It's up after the news here from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. the week on 580 Sports Talk, live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. He is Spencer Dupuis. He, on the other side of the glass, is Trenton Kraxner. Dan Lucero is out again today. He'll be back following his paternity leave coming up on Monday. We'll have the full four-man crew, our summer crew anyway, with you coming up on Monday. We'll have plenty of Royals baseball to get to from the weekend. We'll preview the weekend series for the Royals coming up here in a little bit. Royals versus Rangers this weekend. The reigning World Series champion Rangers hosting the Kansas City Royals. We'll get to that coming up here later on this hour. We'll also get to the latest on the stadium news. Laura Kelly signed the bill. We are even closer to Kansas maybe making a real push to go get the Chiefs and or Royals to come across the state line. And we're going to hear from Matt Derrick. He'll be featured in 580 Sports Talk Overtime as well. We talked to him in the 3 o'clock hour, but we have to listen back to what he said about the odds he put on the Chiefs to actually move from Missouri to Kansas. I think it's fascinating. We will get to that coming up a little bit later on. We, of course, want to hear from you. 785-272-9429 is the Top City Metal Supply text line number. We also would love to hear from you on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the name of our YouTube channel. Go subscribe if you haven't already. Then you can check out all of the video content we have over there today. A reminder that no more wasting money on metal pieces. That won't be a problem for you anymore when you work with Top City Metal Supply, because they'll cut the exact lengths of aluminum, steel, and stainless steel you need tailored to your project's specifications. Start optimizing your budget with Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, just north of Forbes Field. All right, Spencer, let's get to it. Today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. First one for me, sending out good wishes to Wichita's own, arguably the greatest running back of all time, Barry Sanders. Put out a statement earlier today, said, "To all of my supporters, over Father's Day weekend, I experienced a health scare related to my heart. It was unexpected and served as a reminder of the importance of staying vigilant about our physical well-being, even when we are feeling fine. I am grateful for the amazing doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals for providing me with needed care. My family and I are thankful for your prayers and support during this time. Per my doctor's recommendation, I am taking this opportunity to prioritize my health and well-being. I appreciate your understanding and continued support. Signed, Barry Sanders." Again, arguably the greatest running back of all time. There's three. You can pick whatever three you want, or pick them in any order you want, but the argument includes three. It's Barry, it's Walter, it's Jim. Barry Sanders, Walter Payton, Jim Brown. That is the conversation for the greatest running back of all time. And I don't think there's a whole lot of argument about that. Adrian Peterson was awesome. He's the closest one to the modern era.
LaDainian
Tomlinson was great.
I think there's tiers.
Like everything. Yeah.
We could do a whole show on tiering the top running backs of all time.
And for sure.
What you just mentioned, that first tier.
Yes.
Then that second tier includes the two guys that we just mentioned.
Other dudes who are Hall of Famers, but not Barry, Walter, and Jim. Yes. That's that second tier, yes. Right? Exactly. We got to see Barry last year at the Shrine Bowl. He was honored on the field at the game and put in the Shrine Bowl Hall of Fame. Barry in every Hall of Fame for everywhere he has ever been in his life. Wichita's own, one of the greatest ever. Great dude, very gracious guy, and obviously hoping the best. Not a whole lot more to get to here, but just hoping for the best for Barry Sanders. It's amazing that he is arguably the best to ever do it, and he is still an all-time what if. He could have played for a couple of years more and maybe even been even better. Or put up even bigger numbers. He might have had the all-time rushing record, which is now, of course, owned by Emmitt Smith. He also would belong in that second tier for what it's worth. But yeah, the Wichita product, Wichita North's own Barry Sanders, thankfully doing okay. He is recovering for now. That is great to hear, and hopefully no more issues for the 55-year-old. Way too young for anything to happen to the great Barry Sanders. So hopefully he's doing all right. And we have many more years of getting to enjoy the great Barry Sanders.
Yeah. My first headline is kind of a two-part headline. News bits coming out of the great university of Kansas.
Say it again.
The Great University of Kansas.
That's right.
Or KU, if we're going to label it by their shorthand.
Good day or
Yeah.
good week for recruiting. Been a good couple of weeks.
Kansas has landed 3-star wide receiver Jackson Cook. Fresh off his official visit, he's in the class of 2025, obviously, I believe from Georgia.
He's in fact on campus right now, I believe. Yeah.
And then another note, Kansas Hoops has scheduled Oakland on Saturday, November 16th for their non-conference schedule, which is coming together. A lot of teams on there. I forgot them off the top of my head, but we went over them a couple weeks back.
Creighton, UConn. That'll be in stores.
UNC,
North Carolina, Duke, Missouri.
Somebody else too. I can't remember.
Obviously the Big 12 schedule. And where is KU going for the non-conference tournament this year? Oh, I can't remember.
Michigan. They're playing Michigan.
We're playing Michigan this year?
I'm pretty sure they're playing Michigan in...
Oh, Michigan State, Champions
Michigan
Classic.
State, that's
yeah,
what it was.
Champions
Yeah,
Classic.
sorry,
yeah, in the first event of the year.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember what KU's first non-conference event is. I don't think they're going to Atlantis this year. That was a year or two ago. They went to Atlantis.
I don't know. One of the guys had it. The big time guys like Rothstein or something.
Rothstein did.
He had a few weeks back. I think it was the start of your vacation. It was when we were at the mall for the Kansas State thing.
Yes, with the Catbackers.
Yes, when we were at that Catbackers event, they like a whole slew of games. UNC, Michigan State in the Champions Classic, Creighton, the Big 12 Big East battle. There'll be a Duke in Las Vegas, and then Missouri, and then whoever else we just mentioned. That was as of May 23rd. So
yeah, that's a dang good schedule.
Yeah.
That's what Bill Self does.
Yeah.
Good schedules. Oakland, on the back of that NCAA tournament run this year, is going to fund their athletic department for a decade. They're playing Illinois this year. They're playing KU at Allen Fieldhouse this year. It's incredible what they have been able to do for that athletic department. Our good pal Matt Brown from Extra Points, he has written before about what's called the Flutie effect, where a team has a great moment in football, a huge win for a major underdog, or a team makes a Cinderella run to the Elite Eight or the Final Four. And the effect that people think, oh, this is going to be great for admissions, this is going to be great for the university, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It usually doesn't last more than a year or maybe even less than that.
exactly.
Oakland is doing the right thing right now and riding high and is saying, hey, people have name recognition for us right now. They know about Oakland. They're going to talk about us. And this is going to be a chance for a lot of big schools to say, yeah, we'll bring you in for a bye game. And they're going to pay for their, I don't know if it's NIL help or they're going to pay for just the whole athletic department with these bye games for years coming off of that. So good on Oakland for doing that. Greg Campy, the head coach of Oakland, he started his career with the Golden Grizzlies. His first season was all the way back in 1984. Did you know he was he has been coaching since before the three-point line was permanent in college basketball?
I did not know that.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
Absolutely incredible. He has taken Oakland to every one of their NCAA tournament appearances. He's won multiple league titles. He is a legend of a head coach, absolute legend. And I'm glad they'll be at Allen Fieldhouse this year.
Yeah.
It's a fun matchup. Next headline for me today. These are our 580 Sports Talk headlines. Let's go with some big, well, they're not Big 12 football anymore. They're SEC football. Almost misspoke. Brent Venables is getting a new contract from Oklahoma. Haven't seen the financials on this quite yet. Want to see if we can find these. But from Pete Thamel of ESPN, Oklahoma has agreed to a new 6-year contract for Coach Brent Venables. The new 6-year deal includes a significant raise for Venables, and there's been an uptick in overall program commitment as OU heads to the SEC. The deal still requires board approval. Venables is 16-10 in 2 seasons, including a 10-3 season last year. Look, you've got to keep giving guys extensions and new contracts. That's just the way the game works these days. Coaches don't usually get even to the back half of contracts these days, let alone to the final year of deals when you're talking about programs like Oklahoma, other major players, title contenders, blue blood programs, all of that. I don't know that we really know that Venables is going to work out at Oklahoma. They went 10-3 this past year. Good. That's a good year for Oklahoma. Oklahoma should be contending for national championships every single year. Every single year. There are certain programs that should always, without question, be in contention to win the national title. Oklahoma is one of those programs. Make jokes if you want about all the times they got bounced in the semifinal round of the college football playoff or in all the terrible defenses they had under Lincoln Riley. That's a blue blood program. Texas is the same way. They're even more fun to make fun of. Texas should be competing for a national championship every single year. Both of those teams are now going to have much harder roads to get there. I am not convinced that they are going to be completely awful in the SEC. I know there are a handful of people who do believe that. We have a texter from earlier today on the 785. Mark my words. Texas and Oklahoma will be little better than 500 football teams in the SEC. They routinely got their ass kicked when playing SEC teams, other than Texas beating Bama last season during a down year by Tide standards. Down here, they still made it to the college football playoff. I don't think they are going to be played off the field regularly. I really don't. But it is odd to me to say, well, now we're committing more to the program. Well, what the hell were you doing before? You're Oklahoma. You should never have to say we need to commit more to football. You are football.
Exactly.
That's a bizarre statement to me that Pete Thamel reported there. But Brent Venables, new 6-year contract and new raise as well. I've seen one rumor that it's now a $46 million total deal, a couple $1 million tacked on to what he was making before. But that's the business. You just keep getting paid all the time, even when you just got a contract. And I know that. We all know that because Lance Leipold's gotten a new contract and new raises 2 years in a row. That happens sometimes. So Brent Venables down at OU, a new 6-year deal as of today.
Yeah, my next headline, we're staying in college athletics, but moving to hoops. This coming from John Rothstein just over 2 hours ago. The D1 Council will vote next week on whether or not 2 public exhibition games against other D1 programs could replace closed scrimmages and exhibitions against non-D1 opponents during the preseason. If passed, this would significantly alter the sport of college hoops in their preseason.
So this right here, the way Rothstein is reporting this would not be great for your smaller programs like your Washburns of the world. Cool for, TV purposes. I mean, that's awesome. And I'm sure a lot of coaches would like to play, D1 coaches would like to play other D1 schools for these preseason games because it gives you an opportunity to face quote unquote tougher competition right away. Yeah. It's bad for your, D2s or NAIAs or even D3s because then those D1 programs that bring you to their place and you get that great experience, that might be taken away from you. Now,
I mean, it's even bad for mid-major teams in certain areas. Like, for example, Marshall, they always would bring in the D2 teams or NIA teams within the tri-state area, and they would be their first couple games of the year would be their exhibition games. Like they played University of Pikeville in Kentucky. And then in years past, they've played like the D2, like West Virginia State or Frostburg for Fairmont State and teams like that. And that would change.
So it sounds like, if I'm reading this correctly, this would not necessarily remove the ability to play those teams, but you could play a D1 opponent in the preseason instead of a D2, D3, NAIA, etc. So if you had 2 games to play, you could say, well, normally we would have played Emporia and Pitt if you're K-State. But with this new rule, instead, we're going to play just Pitt and we'll replace the Emporia game with somebody else. That, I think, is my read on this situation. There was a report on Twitter earlier in the week. This is from Twitter account @LowMadness. They cover small conferences in Division I. And they're not just a nobody account. They have quite a following. They've gotten news on mid and low majors before. They had tweeted this out. The NCAA will allow schools to play up to 2 intra-squad scrimmages at an off-campus location in addition to 2 exhibition games versus NCAA-affiliated schools, including Division I. So that, again, kind of reiterates to me that the D2 games aren't out of it, that they aren't getting thrown away, but you don't have to play them in order to get an exhibition in.
Yeah.
In our area and with the teams and caliber of teams that we cover and talk about, I would imagine this is more pertinent. Like if you're Marshall, for example, this might not affect you a whole lot because a bunch of the D1 teams that you would like to scrimmage against are probably either still going to play their D2 schools or are going to play against high major programs.
Yeah.
So you might end up in a situation where the best game you can get is Glenview State or Frostburg or whoever it ends up being. So I think this probably affects your Big 12, Big 10, SEC kind of teams more than it would impact the mid majors. But I do think it is interesting, and I hope it does not take away from D2 teams ever getting to play against the D1 teams. Like the fact that Washburn gets to play at KU every few years is great. I mean, that's an awesome opportunity for everyone. It's a cool thing that the schools in state do. I think this was originally a Roy thing that he really emphasized KU doing at the very least. And other states, other coaches have done it too. But just speaking from the KU perspective, that they have a kind of a state showcase and that the other teams from the state get to go to Lawrence or get to go to Manhattan and play against these teams. I do think there is a lot of value to that. And I do hope that continues for at least one game per season. Next headline for me for today. This one is hilarious, I think, to be honest with you. So the 2028 Olympics are going to be headquartered in Los Angeles. They're back in the U.S. in 2028. By the way, the 2024 Olympics begin in 35 days.
Yeah.
July 26th. I cannot wait.
It's been a big week for the swimming qualifications.
Have you watched any of that?
A little bit. I've seen a lot of the stuff on Twitter and whatnot, but oh my gosh, like what they've been able to do with Lucas Oil Stadium for swimming specifically.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Like get that amount of people in there.
Yeah.
And it'll go on with Los Angeles as well. I don't know if you saw that tweet from I think it's one of the owners or somebody with the committee in LA or it's about SoFi. They had a picture of SoFi. With the pools in it for the Olympics.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So the 28 Olympics in LA, they are going to host most of the events in Los Angeles and Southern California. But in every Olympics, they have to move certain things because of the facilities or for the Winter Olympics, first make sure you get the best snow and all that. The Vancouver Olympics, we remember those. They held a lot of events in Whistler, Canada. Well, this is hilarious. And this is from Patrick Spencer of KFOR TV in Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City is going to play host to 2 Olympic events for the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics. They are going to host canoe slalom and softball.
One of those makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's the best softball facility in the country is in Oklahoma City. That's where they do the World Series. They have done the World Series for a long time. That makes a whole lot of sense. I guess there's a place where they can do canoe slalom as well. I just think this is hilarious. I thought they would have moved things, to the Inland Empire or, San Francisco or something. Not all the way to Oklahoma City.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot for the broadcast people.
Yeah, no kidding about that. So I do think that is funny. But I saw some responses that say they really didn't like this. I honestly understand why an athlete might feel that way. Like, man, you promised me I could be in the Olympic Village in LA, but instead we're moving all the way to Oklahoma City. That doesn't seem quite the same.
Especially having to be there for the opening festivities.
Right, exactly.
And
Yeah,
then
the
having
travel
to travel to OKC.
might not even
That'll be annoying.
honestly might not even send those athletes to the opening ceremony. I don't know what the schedule will look like.
You might
but
send one or two.
yeah, just like representatives and have it all go back. Yeah, kind of an interesting situation there. Any other headlines for you today?
No, let's get right to the playoff roundup.
Might be the second to last one of the year. Let's do the playoff roundup.
It's time for the 580 Sports Talk Playoff Roundup.
Well, I do believe it would be the second to last one because I think they play on Sunday night.
Oh, is that game 7?
I could be wrong, but if they're no, they might play Monday because it would go back to Florida, right?
Yeah, that's
Never mind.
long travel. Yeah, game 7 will be Monday.
Okay, never mind.
So at most, we have 3 more.
yeah,
We have at least 2 more.
Yeah.
So tonight, puck drop at 7 o'clock our time in Edmonton. Man, it's going to be, what, a 5 o'clock start? Maybe 6 o'clock start in Edmonton?
Yeah.
The Oilers will try to send it to game 7 against the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup final. Florida leads the series 3-2. They were up 3-0. Edmonton trying to send us to game 7. I saw this earlier today from Josh Dubow, who is the athletic or an Associated Press writer out of Northern California. We are currently in the midst of a historic lack of game 7s. The last time that in NBA finals, Stanley Cup finals, or World Series went to 7 games, they have to go all the way back to 2019. And that was your Washington Nationals.
Yeah,
Spencer.
I pointed that out. But back to this, we didn't get one in yesterday, and we were off on Wednesday. The game 5, huge. Connor McDavid showed up. He's doing what he's supposed to do as a superstar. 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 goals or 4 points. He only had 2 shots on goal, so he made his 2 shots huge. And now we're going into a game 6.
I love that because Connor McDavid rules, and you don't need to know a whole lot about hockey to know that dude is sick. He's nice with it, as the kids say. I've been wrong almost every single game I've picked in this series. So sorry, Edmonton, but I'm going to pick the Oilers.
Yeah,
I think they get it to game 7.
I picked the Oilers the other night, I think.
Nice.
Or on Tuesday.
I think you did.
Because they were home.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm going to go
Well,
with
no,
them at
Tuesday
home.
they were on the road.
Or no, yeah, I don't know. I don't know then.
We'll go check the tape.
Yeah, we'll have to go check.
We've got a lot of playoffs to go through. But yes, puck drop for game 6 tonight at 7 o'clock. I believe that's going to be on ABC tonight if you want to watch that on television. We've got a text in here on the Top City Metal Supply text line from the 785. Edmonton was last relevant when the Great One played there until now. Yeah, I don't know that Connor McDavid's ever going to be in the Wayne Gretzky conversation. No one has been since. He's special. He is unbelievable to watch. A lot of fun watching Connor McDavid, and I would like to see them win. I think that'd be a lot of fun. What a cool full circle thing, too. The last time they won the Stanley Cup was right before Wayne Gretzky left town, and then for the first one they win since then to be with Connor McDavid at the helm, I think that would be pretty cool. That is it for today's playoff roundup, and that is it for today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. On the other side of this break, the stadium bill hit the desk of Governor Laura Kelly earlier today, and she signed that right on through. What it means and why Matt Derrick thinks there's a really good chance the Chiefs will move across the state line. That's coming up next segment on 580 Sports Talk Live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. 6:33 on 580 Sports Talk, live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Brendan, Spencer, Trenton here with you. We're back on Monday, full show from 2 until 6. We'll have plenty to get to from the Royals weekend. We'll get ready for that series against the Rangers coming up later on in this hour. Laura Kelly, governor of the state of Kansas, today she signed the stadium bill into effect. That's, maybe not the exact right nomenclature for it.
It's just the Star Bonds bill, right?
Yeah. So this is
includes
the stadium potential, right? So this is the writing from the Associated Press. Kansas Governor Laura Kelly signed legislation Friday enabling the state to lure the Chiefs and Royals away from neighboring Missouri by helping the teams pay for new stadiums. Kelly's action came 3 days after the Republican-led legislature approved the measure with bipartisan supermajorities, an unusually quick turnaround that signals how urgently Kansas officials consider making the offers. Missouri officials have argued that discussions about building new stadiums are still in the early stages. They say that construction takes typically about 3 years and pointed out that the lease on the existing complex that includes the team's side-by-side stadiums doesn't end until January 2031. The measure Kelly signed takes effect on July 1st and will allow bonds to cover 70% of a new stadium's cost. Kansas would then have 30 years to pay them off with revenues from sports betting, state lottery ticket sales, and new sales and alcohol taxes generated in the area around each stadium. Some other notes included in here that a lot of lawmakers across the state of Kansas voted in favor of this, including half the lawmakers from Western Kansas, where they are going to be a long way away anyway. Yeah, it's a political move, certainly, obviously. Kansas lawmakers approved the stadium financing during a single-day special session on Tuesday, although it doesn't specifically name the Chiefs and Royals. It is limited to stadiums for NFL and MLB teams in any state adjacent to Kansas. So
I love how they have to write these things in on guidelines, and they can't specifically use a team name, but everybody knows what they're talking about.
Adjacent to Kansas. No teams in Nebraska. No teams in Oklahoma. We know about the teams in Missouri. The Kansas Rockies. The Kansas Broncos. Move the Broncos to Garden City, Kansas.
Move the Rockies. I think Dan might be happy about that.
Honestly, he might not be. He might be even more upset that he doesn't have an excuse to ignore them if they were that close. May make him feel even worse about the team. This was expected. We talked about it earlier in the week on Tuesday when it passed, when we had heard that there was really no argument that had been made to Governor Kelly not to pass this through. So not really a surprise there. We are getting even closer to this being a very potential outcome. And that's why I want to recall something we heard from Matt Derrick earlier today, our Chiefs insider. He joined us at the bottom of the 3 o'clock hour just over 2 hours ago, or just about 2 hours ago. I've got the full clip here. We were talking about where he is swaying in terms of, are they going to move to Kansas? Do you think there's momentum there? Do you think Missouri's going to get them back? I want you to hear the full answer. We got about 2.5 minutes here of what our guy Matt Derrick had to say about how he's feeling and just how strongly he feels that Kansas might be in the lead right now to get the Chiefs specifically. Take a listen.
I feel like the momentum is so far on the Kansas side that it's going to be difficult for Missouri to catch up. I mean, I know the Kansas City Mayor Quentin Lucas said the other day that this is just the first quarter of negotiations. But I mean, if you're Missouri, you're down 24-3. I mean, it may be the first quarter, but you are way behind right now. And there's a lot of pieces into place. I mean, it looks like there's a reasonable chance sports wagering is going to be on the ballot in November. That's the first piece. And if the voters take that out of control of the hands of the legislature, at least that's a move in the right direction. And then you would need an local entity to step up and get something done. I mean, you almost have to believe that if Missouri side is going to get done, it's going to have to be a Kansas City, Missouri, or a Clay County, someone else stepping in to say, we're going to be the entity that funds this thing. And if the state helps out down the road, great, but we're not going to depend on them because we can't wait until May of 2025 to put an offer in the Chiefs' hands. Somebody's going to have to step up pretty quick. And you're right. I mean, getting something before the voters, I mean, once again, that's not going to be an easy process. I mean, and the star bun process in Kansas and what you're able to do is so much more streamlined. I mean, right now, I mean, they're down to the point where you can just start talking development deals. And in Missouri, you're not even anywhere close to that. The only thing, Brendan, that really stands out to me is maybe being the hiccup in this is that I don't know, you might not be old enough to remember, but because I had to go back and look at it. I was relatively young myself back then when the Speedway was built, but that took a lot longer than people thought, and it didn't get through because there were a lot of lawsuits that had to go back and forth between landowners and all of this. Maybe you'll run into that again. There was some lawsuits, I think, over the star bond process. If you run into that, then maybe it could get delayed and slow down. But I feel like at this point, I think it's 90% plus that the Chiefs end up in Kansas.
90% plus.
Yeah, I feel like it's just Missouri is too far behind. I mean, maybe the Chiefs will give them a year. Maybe they will give them until May of 2025 to put together a proposal. But at this point, I mean, you're almost talking about it being too late to get anything on for this year for sure. You're almost saying if you're going to get something before voters and you're a local entity, it's going to be April of 2025. And I'm still not convinced that the state and the General Assembly in Missouri can even agree on what color the sky is, much less put together something for the Chiefs and the Royals.
That part is, I think, interesting because while the opponents to the Kansas bill from the Missouri side are saying, well, hold on, the lease doesn't end for 7 more years. It takes 3 years to build a stadium. Let's not be hasty here. If the Kansas side comes up with a deal right now and says, hey, we're going to give you this, and it's on the table right now. This is the deal you got. Look at them bickering. They couldn't figure this out. The people of Kansas City voted against it. They didn't want to extend a 3/8 cent sales tax to keep your stadiums there and to improve them. We've got a sweetheart deal for you right now. Commit to it.
Yeah.
Do you think the Chiefs would do it? I don't know. I really don't know if the Chiefs would do it.
I don't know. I think it would make sense for them to do it financially.
The worst case scenario for Kansas City, for the Chiefs, would be if Kansas said, take it or leave it. If they said 70% covered by star bonds, you're going to get other breaks, I'm sure, for various building permits or whatever. We've got the space for you. Take it or leave it. You have until election day. You have until January 1st, whatever. That would be the worst case scenario for the Chiefs, because then if they don't take it and Kansas says, okay, sorry, that deal's off the table, Missouri then gets all the power back because it's, power. They're still going to fork over a bunch of money. But then suddenly it's, now you only have one option. And now you're going to have to take the deal we are going to offer you. So that changes things. I don't know that Kansas will act that quickly. I don't know if it makes the most sense for the Chiefs to act that quickly either. But I do think that's an interesting idea that Matt brought up, and that the AP story also brought up and its sources saying, well, hold on now. This doesn't need to go this quickly.
I think, though, we're at the point where, real things are about to happen.
I agree.
Because now that it's past the governor, what was it, in April we saw those renderings?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody just put out renderings. I think it might have been the Kansas government, somebody within I don't know. But we saw renderings, and it didn't mean anything because there was nothing on the table.
Right.
Now everything's passed. Now you can talk legit. It's not, hey, this rumor is this or whatever. Now there's this is put up or shut up time for people to start making a deal.
Mm-hmm. No, you're completely right about that. I also would like to add, because I asked Matt about this too, the sports gambling aspect of this. And it's already legal in Kansas. And while a new stadium would probably be built over by the Legends in that KCK Bonner Springs area, I'm sure the Chiefs would come to some sort of agreement with the Hollywood Casino that's already built there at the Legends.
And let's throw up some kiosks
at the stadium. Exactly. They have,
or you can make a mini like at Nats Park, there's a mini sporting. I can't remember who it's through, but like right off at the bottom of the parking garage, they have, it's like a little, probably as big as our 2 studios or this set of studios. It's just a little, like, you go in, there's some couches, there's TVs everywhere.
Yeah, I'm sure they would do something like that in Kansas, no problem. Whether it is a new mini book itself at the stadium, or they just partner up with the casino that's already there and it becomes, you know, a partnership sort of thing if Hollywood's willing to do that. Whereas in Missouri, if it passes, I do think that would be a selling point. I think it would be, hey, look, it's legal here now, and you can build the Chiefs DraftKings sportsbook at Arrowhead 2, or it's, you know, the BetMGM Chiefs sportsbook, whatever.
Yeah.
That is, I think, a real possibility. If it doesn't pass, then suddenly that's not on the table anymore. And again, that is something that the state of Kansas has that Missouri cannot offer. And if you think, Brendan, that's not that big of a deal, you want proof that it's not that big of a deal? The owner of the former Arizona Coyotes, now the Utah Hockey Club, that was one of the biggest reasons why he was trying to get a new stadium in Arizona where gambling is legal. He did not want to move the team. He wanted to stay in Arizona because they've got legal sports gambling, and he wanted to build a casino, or at least a sports book, attached to the stadium. It didn't end up working out. He did move the team to Utah, where gambling is certifiably not legal.
Well, it was bought.
Well, yes, sold the team. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. I missed a detail there. But either way, he wanted to keep the team in Arizona for that reason, ended up selling them instead because he couldn't get that done. That is something teams want. They built a sports book attached to Wrigley Field. Okay, this is the new era that we are in. Teams are willing and wanting to do stuff like that.
I mean, teams are doing it. They're just saying, screw whatever was there before. Like the Monumental Sports, the owner of the Capitals and Wizards, they had just redone in 2019 or 2018. They had just redone a Green Turtle attached, which is like a sports bar and grill, attached to Capital One. Maybe it was 2017, somewhere around there, right? Yeah. Not even 3 years later, they're like, during the time of COVID, it never opened back up, and they made it a William Hill sportsbook.
There you go. It's important. Yeah. Whether you bet or not, it's important to these teams.
They cut off a lease with somebody else to start a lease with them.
Yeah. Jay Hawker on YouTube says that's exactly what Kansas should do. The Chiefs just want to use the Kansas deal for leverage to stay in Missouri. And if that is the case, and if the Kansas side, the representatives, the people working with it feel like, hey, we're just getting played here, then they should put a time on it and say, okay, you got till January 1.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know that that's true.
I don't know that it is. I'm just saying, in that hypothetical scenario, I can understand that approach.
The Royals might do that.
Man, I don't know what the Royals are going to do.
I mean, they're supposed to have a new stadium downtown, but that's not happening.
I wonder if they'd be willing to stay at the Truman Sports Complex if the Chiefs left on their own.
Probably not.
Probably not.
They want that downtown stadium.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to get it. Have you seen the proposals? You might have mentioned this earlier, to put it in the West Bottoms and have half of it in Kansas and half of it in Missouri.
Just a joke.
It's unique. I'll say that. Yeah. Definitely unique. We'll preview this weekend's Royals versus Rangers series on the other side of this timeout on 580 Sports Talk. lot of you guys with plenty of strong opinions on the stadium issue love it, and that's good because it's not going away anytime soon. We had a text in here from the 785 on the Top City Metal Supply text line. Missourians can whine all they want, but the star bond process as used by Kansas makes better sense for the taxpayers who are pretty much off the hook for the bill. Yeah, in terms of the, property taxes and whatnot. Increased sales tax in the dot and in that area that'll go up to help pay for it. But being able to use the sports gambling fund and lottery excess and all of that, it's doable. Might be tough, but it seems like it's at least doable. And again, this conversation ain't going anywhere in the near future. Real quick, Royals versus Rangers. Game 1 is tonight. Pregame starts at the bottom of the 6 o'clock hour, 6:30. We will have pregame, postgame, and the game itself here on 580 WIBW. And we will, of course, have some 580 Sports Talk overtime leading you into pregame coverage tonight. Brady Singer versus Nathan Eovaldi tonight. Alec Marsh is going to go Sunday. Rangers haven't named their starter yet. Saturday. This is maybe the most intriguing pitching matchup. Michael Wacha has a chance to return. Everything goes as we expect over the next couple days. He will start tomorrow night. Max Scherzer has a chance to make his season debut for the Rangers coming up on Saturday as well.
Yeah, that'd be a huge game.
That'd be a lot of fun to get that matchup. Two guys returning. Obviously, Max Scherzer, Hall of Famer. Michael Wacha, pretty good. Good career. Nice player. Not a Hall of Famer, but seems to be a nice player.
It would be the highlight matchup of the
weekend. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Unless
100%.
Who else do they have on their team?
I honestly am not even sure. Who would get the call?
Who else? What's the other pitcher they have? That's injured. Is DeGrom close to coming back?
I don't think so. I think DeGrom is out for in substantial amount of time.
Oh, he threw on a mound.
Oh.
4 days ago is what it said.
Threw on a mound 4 days ago for the first time in over a year.
So it's still a ways away.
15 pitches, no breaking balls. Yeah, I would guess there's still a little time left for him. It should be a great time for Brady Singer to bounce back again.
It would.
You got to get a little more out of Brady Singer here. The Rangers have been very up and down this year, very streaky team. They're beatable, but then again, the A's are pretty beatable too. 6:30 pregame start time, first pitch right after 7 o'clock. You'll be able to hear all the action here on 580 WIBW. Coming up next, we'll wrap up this day. We'll wrap up this week of 580 Sports Talk with the final word. up 580 Sports Talk. Been a great day, been a great week. Check out the podcast page at 580wibw.com. If you missed anything, go check out the YouTube stream as well. 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. Real quick, Spencer, final word.
I think the stadium talk is getting legit, and I think one, if not both teams in the next 5 to 8 years will be in the Kansas side of things. Also, this is my last weekend as a bachelor alone. Next weekend, next Sunday, my girlfriend moves out here. So I'm going to spend the weekend doing nothing again.
Absolutely nothing.
Because I know I'll be very busy for the next couple
Yes,
weeks.
it is going to be great. I remember when Abby moved in with me for full time for the first time. It was awesome. I loved it, and obviously it has worked out.
Yeah.
You will have projects.
It's going to be like, you need to do this. You need to go to the store here.
Yes.
You're coming to the store with me, right?
Projects you did not know were ever going to exist are suddenly going to exist.
Yeah.
So yes, take the weekend off. My final word for today: Justin Reid as a kickoff specialist is so fascinating to me. We know he can do it. We've literally seen him do it for the Chiefs before. I like that the Chiefs are trying to be on the cutting edge of the new kickoff rules, but what else would you expect from the best prepared team every year in the NFL? We're back with a full show on Monday. Dan is back with us for a full show on Monday as well, following his paternity leave. We appreciate you guys watching along, listening along, and we'll talk to you coming up on Monday back here on 580 Sports Talk. For Spencer Dupuis, for Trenton Craxner, I'm Brendan Wrzinski. We'll talk to you then. Overtime's up next.